Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
And I'm Reggie the Arcade.
And today we are talking about something that doesn't get talked about enough in Commander. When you roll the dice, it determines what seat order you're in, and it matters more than you think, even in casual games.
Yeah, and not just like who goes first, second, third, and fourth, but also like how you act in relation to the geography of where you're sitting versus certain opponents.
Yeah, is the control player to your right, is the Voltron player to your left? It all makes a difference in how you could think while you're playing the game.
Yeah, it changes the entire dynamic. I think about gameplay completely different if I'm in first seat as opposed to if I'm in fourth seat.
Yeah, and I think a lot of players don't think about it enough when they're making decisions or political deals or like what do you remove or who do you attack? Like I think a lot of players don't calculate that in, and I find myself forgetting to calculate it in sometimes. So this is gonna be a fun episode to discuss what I think is probably the most unexplored, like strategical area of Commander.
Yeah. Let's talk about the most obvious side of this conversation, the difference between going first and going last. Now, there didn't used to be a ton of stats on this, but there's more and more sources for getting statistics on Commander games, so we're going to start with a little bit of this. We have our own statistics that we've been gathering from our own gameplay. This is obviously a little bit skewed because it's based heavily on me, Josh, and Jimmy. But out of the 154 games that have been on the channel, the player in seat 1 won 27.27% of the game. So a little bit more than average, but not lots.
Yeah, remember each of the four players, if everything was completely equal, should get a 25% or 1 in 4 win share.
Yeah.
Seat 2 in our games won 24.68, also a reasonable, close to 25%. Seat 3 won 27.92%, so Seat 3 is actually our most successful seat in our data. And Seat 4 only won 20.13% of games. So that is showing a pretty significant disadvantage to whatever player is in the fourth seat.
Yeah.
It's lower than I thought it would be, it's closer than I thought it would be between first and third, because you know that first is highly advantaged in a multiplayer format. So I didn't suspect that third place would be higher when you look at the statistics.
Yeah, we have some theories about why that might be, which we'll talk about later. But I think the big takeaway here is that seat 4 is obviously disadvantaged.
Yeah.
And the other 3, there's some give and take there, but are at least bunched around the right number, right?
Yeah, we're going to compare that to some statistics that have a lot more games that have different caveats to them. So let's talk about some Playgroup GG statistics. This is an app that lets playgroups log their own game data and takes all of that and compiles it. So it has 27,366 games, so a lot more games than we're able to log on our own channel, and it is mostly casual focused. So most of the games are casual players, should be a decent slice of the Commander population. They're saying seat 1 won 28.9% of games, seat 2 won 26.2, seat 3 23.4, and seat 4 is 21.5.
That's a more linear graph, right?
Yeah.
Because and seat 1 very advantaged in this data set.
Yeah, 4%, right? Yeah.
Closer to what I would suspect is that when you look at the graph, it'd be like, well, the higher or the earlier you go, the more advantaged you are, and then that obvious disparity at fourth place being the lowest.
And we've seen this similar kind of pattern show up in cEDH data. It's even more extreme in more powerful circles, which we'll talk about why that might be. So this is the Steel City Spectacular data. It had 840 games. Seat 1 won 23.4% of games. Seat 2, 18.76. Seat 3, 15.4. Seat 4, 13.7. And draws happened in 28.7% of games.
Wow.
So keep that in mind.
This is cEDH tournament data.
Right, yes.
Yeah. But this shows, I'd say, a similar thing, even more pronounced.
10% difference between seat 1 and seat 4.
Even more pronounced. And the 5% or 4.5% difference between first and second is bigger when you consider that the slice of the pie is kind of smaller because of so many draws.
Right.
So, yeah. This would tend to tell the story, I would assume, that the more powerful the decks get, the more strong seat 1 becomes.
Yeah. Also, the faster the games are, the stronger seat 1 becomes. Because in cEDH, like the earlier you go, the game can end on turn 2, right? Yeah.
And that's intuitive. I would think would make sense, because if I'm on turn 4, but you're all still on turn 3, that 1 mana advantage that I have in that extra card it represents a significant portion. Like, it's 25% more mana than you've got.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not counting ramp and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would sort of snowball in the direction of the shorter, more powerful games, it being sort of more important to sort of get off early.
Yeah, we're also talking about you have less time to catch up. If you're naturally disadvantaged, if you're starting in 4th place and you only have 4 or 5 turns to catch up, that's a much shorter distance than in a Commander game, which will have 9 turns, 8 turns, 7 turns to close that gap.
Yeah, that's a really, really smart way to think about it. Your equalization opportunity is just not as great because you just have less time to sort of figure out a moment to kind of like claw back.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you think about a Commander game as a race where all 4 players start in the order of turn order, the player who goes first gets the first opportunity to ramp, gets the first opportunity to attack, gets the first opportunity to cast spells. That means the player in 4th really needs to do something to overcome that gap in order to win the game. Because all things, like if everybody played exactly the same cards on exactly the same turn, the player in seat 1 is going to win the game.
And you see this in 1v1, and it's even more pronounced in 1v1, where basically almost every format that's ever existed in 1v1, including limited, the player who goes first is like advantage in some ways, and sometimes it's like a huge advantage. Sometimes it can be like 60+% for, even in 1v1, just going first in a game of drawing cards and like playing lands, and you get one of each of those per turns is sort of, always going to be advantaged.
Yeah, there's very few advantages to going 4th in a multiplayer game. The only one I can think of, and this is purely for a casual standpoint, is you just get ignored when you're going 4th.
Yeah.
Because everyone recognizes all of these things, like, and I don't know if people think of it like on a statistics basis, but just like subconsciously we all know, oh yeah, like 4th player, you're pretty far behind. You're going to kind of be on the last bit of the radar for this game.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about going last, you were the last player to arrive at every phase of the game. You're the last player to be able to attack. You're the last player to be able to block. You're the last player to be able to ramp. Assuming all things are equal, you just get there last unless you can overcome this gap somehow. So it's like assuming everything is evenly paced, assuming perfect balance in a commander pod, which we all know happens 100% of the time. You're just not going to be keeping up with everybody naturally. And because you haven't really gotten to the phase yet, you're the easiest player to be attacked.
Yeah.
Because they can play their attackers first, and you have maybe deployed a blocker, but not as good as what they're attacking with often. And so you just sort of started a lower life total because of that chip damage.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you probably, like, if we ask the time traveling supercomputer in the sky, the 4th player probably, effectively starts with like a few less life totals from everybody else, because they're the default target. Because if you're the first player and you miss your 2-drop, you're not automatically attacked by every other player. But if you're the 4th player and you miss your 2-drop, anybody that played a 2-drop, you're just a free attack for them. And so like that's maybe you're just down an average of, I would guess it's like 2.5 life or something per game.
It matters. I mean, games are faster than they've ever been, so those little margins where you are disadvantaged matter in a big way.
Yeah, they add up, over the course of thousands of games, and just like lower the percentage chance of that seat.
So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do depending on what seat you're in to either overcome that difference or use the seating geography to your advantage. We're going to talk about some of the problems with going last and how you can overcome that, maybe how you can build your deck to adjust for this disparity. Obviously, sometimes you go first, sometimes you go last. You can't build around a specific seat order.
Yeah, you really don't want to build your deck to be good going last but not going first.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you would do such a thing, but like you don't know what seat you're going to be in when you shuffle up to start playing.
But there are certainly things that you can consider when you're mulliganing, and there's certain cards that are better depending on what seat you're in. And if you want to pick up any of the cards that we're going to talk about in this episode, you can go to cardkingdom.com patreon.com/command. Using that affiliate link helps us out and also means you're shopping at a great, reputable place. We like Card Kingdom a lot because they have so many cards in one place. If you're looking for a big list of cards, you're building a new deck, a new set just came out, you can paste it into the deck builder. It'll give you a list of all of the cards that they have in stock. You can choose them on one page, you pay shipping once, and then you're done. You don't have to compare a bunch of prices, spend a bunch of time buying 80 different pieces of cardboard. Just get it done, get it shipped, and get it on your doorstep so you can start playing. Plus, Card Kingdom has a great team behind them, so if anything goes wrong, you know that you always have somebody on the other line who knows how to handle it because they do this all the time. So if you're picking up some cards and you want to support the show, if you like episodes like this, you can use our affiliate link at cardkingdom.com/command.
And of course, once you get those cards, you want to keep them protected. Ultra Pro is the game accessories brand we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you can find their awesome binders, deck boxes, playmats, sleeves. One of the cool things they've brought back recently is the Eclipse sleeves that have the Apex technology. Jimmy did an ad for them, but one of the cool things in that ad is they show the machine that they developed to test the seal strength on the sleeves, and it literally like pulls the sleeve apart from the inside. So they really spent multiple years developing the technology for Apex, and now they've ported it over to the Eclipse sleeves, which were one of my favorite lines. I still have a few of my decks.
I don't think I've
Eclipse.
ever split an Eclipse sleeve.
Yeah,
I don't ever.
It's crazy, yeah. So just super durable, lasts for a long, long time. So they've reintroduced those. Highly recommend picking them up. ultrapro.com/command, again, is the place to do that.
And the final way to support us is directly by going to patreon.com/command zone. All of our patrons get access to our Discord where you can ask me, Josh, Jimmy, any members of our team questions. It's a great resource. Plus, there's perks like you get to see extra turns and game nights a day early without ads. Plus, at certain tiers, you get access to exclusive content like Turn Talk. Turn Talk is a conversation we have after every single episode of Extra Turns where we talk about what went well, what mistakes we made, what cards really overperformed, what we thought in the moment. So if you're really looking to get into the minds of players, and if you're watching this episode, you probably are, Turn Talk is a really great thing that you can get for becoming a patron. So we hope that you join that. But also, we shout out one lucky patron every single podcast episode. And this one is dedicated to Mark Dietrich. Well, we all went with a different pronunciation, so one of us has to be right. Anyway, Mark, you rock.
You rock, dude.
I'm pretty sure it's Dietrich.
However your name is pronounced, you rock.
On the Turn Talk thing, I want to say, if you want to get in the minds of players, especially insane, crazy players like Crim, you should probably join the Patreon and watch the Turn Talk about the Extra Turns episode where we play the band
That
card.
just came out. Yeah.
That episode's nuts, and just hearing Crim talk about his reasoning for doing anything, also nuts. Yeah, you want to hear that. I don't know if you'll learn a lot, but it'll be entertaining.
But it'll be very fun.
We should say also, like, if you join our Patreon, you might run into Reggie on our Discord because Reggie has joined our team recently.
Woo!
Yeah. So Reggie, welcome to the team. First of all,
Thanks for joining
One of the reasons
us.
you're seeing him on, and maybe you can convince him to be in a rap battle with you or something.
Oh, that'd be sick. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. It's been a blast. And I'm stoked for this episode, too. We got so much cool stuff to talk about.
Yeah, awesome. Well, welcome aboard. And okay, we should continue. I wanted to pause here really quick.
Yeah.
Because our statistics for our own team were slightly different than the statistics for the other two sources we have, cEDH and and I would posit a theory because we have this weird graph where it's first place slightly advantaged, second slightly disadvantaged, third place maybe even a little more advantage than first place, and then fourth place still still bringing up the rear by quite a wide margin. And I would posit that because we did that stats episode all those years ago, and we really highlighted the idea that first place was very advantaged in Commander, and I think we were one of the first to kind of popularize this idea that seeding order really mattered with data. We've been hyper aware of it ever since, and when we play within our own play group, which is fairly large. It's all of our team here and all of our friends and many other influencers that you know and play with. It is often something that's discussed during the game where somebody will point out, I went last or they went first. And I think that just that little bit of verbalization of calling attention to it does change the calculus a little bit. And so I'll have some theories maybe later about why it's skewed exactly how it is, but I think that's interesting and might be a reason why we're slightly different than the sort of overall data at large.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's going to get even more interesting when we look at specific players' data a little bit later, and perhaps
Some of that stuff is crazy.
Some of that stuff is crazy. What? Anyway,
This is really crazy. It's weird.
it's weird. All right, but we're not to that point.
I was
of the
pointing at Rachel
episode.
when I said that. If you were listening to the audio,
It's really embarrassing and weird. Anyway, this
embarrassing.
episode's for me.
yeah, I don't know if it's embarrassing.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to talk about this episode a little bit because we're going to be talking about threat assessment. We're going to be talking about turn order and how that should affect your threat assessment. And I just wanted to say out loud, this should be sort of put into the threat assessment soup. This isn't your only threat assessment. This isn't the only thing that you consider. There's going to be a lot of things that we talk about. We've done a whole episode on threat assessment called Who's the Target? Lessons on Threat Assessment. That was me and Jimmy. You should check that one out if you like this episode. But you combine this one with that one and it'll give you a really good idea of who is advantaged in certain scenarios.
Right.
So it's not the end all be all, like the person going first isn't always definitely the problem, but it is something that you can consider when you're taking game actions.
That brings up the big question, right? Is like, if we're talking about this magical Christmas land scenario where everyone's on an equal playing field, who should the target be in this like dynamic where we know that first player in most situations has such a huge gap between fourth? Is it just like we should all be targeting the first player if everything's even?
I mean, I often do that. If the player went first and I just have early chip damage and I can get a free attack on them, I usually will. That's all things being equal. If there isn't a deck that I'm more afraid of, or if there isn't a Goad deck at the table or something like that.
Right.
If I have an early thing I can do to a player, that I usually will angle it up, which again, that might have something to do with our win percentages on the channel. So I think generally it is a pretty big part of my threat assessment is especially early in the game.
Yeah, I think those moments where you look around and it's not clear to you who's ahead, but you do need to take an action, which is often chip damage. Every once in a while, it's like, I want to use my mana, and I held up a removal spell, and it's the end of the previous, or then the player's turn just to my right. And I'm going to destroy something just so I don't waste the mana. Then a lot of times, if you're not sure who's ahead, then player one becomes the default target.
Yeah.
That's how I play anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we talk a lot on the channel about players who will roll dice to determine what they're going to do. And episodes like this one are sort of an attempt to give people the information that they feel educated to make that decision instead of rolling dice. But something that we've talked about before is that rolling dice itself is a move that people are using to deflect blame.
I disagree with this so hard. I don't feel this. I'm gonna 90% of the time in most of the games that you will play in Commander, there is a clear person that you should attack, that you should target with your interaction. I don't think we've said before, there's a little bit of political favor. You're deflecting the blame. It wasn't me. It was the dice. You chose to roll the dice. If I get hit because you rolled a dice at me, it's not going to deflect the blame. I'm just going to be like, you should have attacked someone else, so you shouldn't have rolled the dice.
So I love the counter move that's going on here, though. But I think that rolling the dice is a ploy. It's a play. It's a strategy. It's a political strategy to deflect blame, like Rachel said. So I think it's a viable tactic as far as especially if you look around and you're not sure who to attack. But often you look around and somebody's a little ahead and you know who it is. I don't think people are always rolling dice because they don't know who to do what to.
Right, yeah.
Sure.
But the advantage of that person is not high enough to sort of draw their ire directly. So you roll the dice to say, I'm going to be fair and equitable about it, to hopefully deflect some of the animosity that's going to come back at you from taking the action.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your opponents do have the choice to do the counter move to that political play, which is not give you credit for the fact that you deflected blame. Say, I'm not going to let you deflect the blame, which is what you're saying, Reggie, that somebody should do. But will every opponent do that in every instance? And the answer to that is definitely no. Some people do give you credit for it and deflect the blame. Therefore, the political move is worth it. Sometimes can be worth it based on the calculation of what is the percentage chance that the person that I hit is going to fully ignore the deflecting of the blame. And So like it is all just like made up math numbers in the sky of percentages that you get that you make a calculation in an instant. But I would say
It's my favorite kind of math.
Yeah.
Made up ones in this guy.
and that's what strategy is, right? Like that's what the game of Magic often is, especially Commander. And one of the things we like about it is like judging like what a person's response is going to be.
Right.
But anyway, I would say that I would fall down on the opposite side of you, Reggie, where I would say rolling dice is a tactic that should be in your toolbox that you can employ sometimes. And if you just say, hey, I'm never going to use this tactic, I think you're probably not going to win as many games as saying, hey, it's narrow. Sometimes I might use it. It's not a never thing, but I understand there are downsides to it and it won't always work.
You know what I do like is if you're in first, I think that it's a really effective tactic that you can leverage, being like, well, I'm so far ahead, no one else has any creatures in play, I'm just going to roll to see who I hit, right? In that situation, it's very easy to be like, oh, okay, like they're pretty far ahead, but very clear that they're not taking this super seriously. They're just kind of like, yeah, caution to the wind, I'll just attack whoever. Then the situation is like, oh, maybe they're not so bad, right? Maybe they went first and they're super far ahead, but he's a nice guy. That I think happens a lot more often than not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about combat specifically because we've talked about it already, but the player in the first seat is advantaged in combat. They get to play their creatures first. They get to attack with the bigger creatures first because they play their 2-drop first and can attack with it. They play their 3-drop first and can attack with it first. And the players after them either haven't deployed the same amount of creatures as them, which means they don't have as many blockers, or they haven't deployed any. That's assuming you've curved out with creatures anyway.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, like if you're going early in the turn order, your 2-drop is up against maximum their 2-drop.
Their 2-drop,
But
right.
if you're going late in the turn order, your 2-drop could be against their 3-drop.
Right.
So you're all like,
That's a great point.
you're just disadvantaged, like no matter what. Sometimes it's against nothing, obviously, because they didn't have anything and couldn't play it off. But that also advantages the player that went first because they're more likely to have nothing. They've had one less turn.
That's something to keep in mind too when you're mulliganing is if you're going first, your creatures that attack are going to be even better. Like if you have a Ragavan in your opening hand and you're going first, you're going to be able to play it on turn 1. They're not like, unless they have a 1-mana blocker and all of them do, you're going to be able to attack somebody where you're going to be able to get it done. But if you're in seat 4 and you have a Ragavan, a creature that needs to hit to attack to do anything,
You're doomed.
it's much worse because by the time you're attacking with a Ragavan, everybody has had the opportunity to deploy their 2-mana creatures, which are going to be better blockers against your little monkey.
Well, and that disadvantage is going to continue. So, you know, your Ragavan, you're hoping to get a couple of swings in it before it's blanked. And it's just going to get blanked faster when you're the later in turn order you are. Because yeah, sure, I think most people will be like, yeah, I'm still going to get an attack in though on turn 2 because not all 3 of my opponents are going to play a 2-drop blocker.
Right.
But what about turn 3? What about turn 4? Like it's probably going to get blanked just a lot earlier. So yeah, I love that thought of like if you look at your hand and you've got things that have to attack and especially deal combat damage to do their thing. Unless they've got evasion or something that's going to get them through, the later you're on turn order, the less good they become.
Or haste. Evasion or haste makes a big difference. If you're going 4th and you have a creature that has haste, the likelihood that everyone has been able to drop a creature on turn 1 or 2 that prevents you from getting in. It's not like a hard solve because how many creatures with haste do you have in your deck that you're able to deploy, but it's something.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about how good haste is in Commander, and I think a big part of why haste is good is because it adjusts the seat dynamic. If you're in 4th, it means that you get to play a creature and deploy and like use it on the same turn, which is you would normally only be able to attack with it a full turn rotation later, which if you're going last is like a nightmare. So it just it lets you sort of jump the line in terms of when you get to act. Like if everybody plays a 2-mana creature on turn 2 and you're going last and yours has haste, at least you get to attack now and not next turn when everybody has had the opportunity to play their 3-mana creatures.
Yeah, I would still say that haste is probably like not as good as like flying or menace or something.
I agree.
For getting you through in 4th place. And if you think of haste, it's mostly like an aggressive strategy. And I think you're naturally going to be less aggressive the later you are in turnover. And if you're playing an aggro deck and you're in C4, like it's going to be pretty tough.
It's
It's just like, and we know from 1v1, aggro is very far advanced or advantage if you go earlier in turn order. So I think haste is sort of more useful and more underrated because of its ability to be a surprise later in the game, where like we're making calculations of what can they do? Can they kill me? How many blockers do I have to leave up? And then they do a thing that just you couldn't see coming that kind of gets around like your plans, and that's just tends to be more effective than like early value plays.
Sure. It's definitely part of the equation of how, if you're in seat 4, you can speed up the clock in your advantage to like make that gap smaller between first and fourth place. Maybe not on turn 2, but maybe on turn 6, that haste is going to make a big difference.
All you need is to be able to shift the table dynamic in your favor. If you can deploy enough quick threats in the early game in terms of combat, or in the late game, I guess, then you can push yourself to first place by mentally making everyone else go on the defensive.
Yeah.
If you drop a Itali that has haste and get to swinging on like turn 5 or something, suddenly if I'm in first place, I'm like, oh, can they do that again on the next turn? Maybe I shouldn't be getting too aggressive. Maybe I should leave up blockers. Boom, you've done it, just like that.
Yeah, you've turned the corner in some way.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because my instincts would be like, you don't want to become the threat if you're in C4, because you've got 3 other players that are 1 turn ahead of you, and if they all turn their heads towards you, you're never going to be able to like withstand that. And so if I'm in seat 4, what I want to do is a quick burst near the end.
Sure.
So like if we're thinking of it as a race, I'm not going to try and like expend a lot of resources to get into, pole position or whatever early in the race, because I was naturally disadvantaged from being behind. I'm going to strategically sort of like set everything up, I've only watched like the Brad Pitt movie or whatever and the Netflix series, so I might get some of the F1 stuff wrong, but like, get my
tires. Mario Kart.
Yeah, get my tires right. Take some risks, get my tires right. Don't pit when everybody else pits, and then look for my moment to burst forward right near the end of the race, so that there's not a lot of time for the risk that I took to make that happen to be equalized by by their like by them doing their thing and getting ahead. Like I want to do that like near the end, and then they're like, crap, I didn't see that coming. He did that thing, and I don't have time to like make my own move. Yeah.
All things being equal, who do you think you should attack with chip damage in the early game? Because I think this is a really interesting strategy that gives you an idea of how you could be thinking about turn order when you're playing. And it's something that you're very good at.
Well, there's so many factors, right? Because, all things being equal, like we said.
It's easiest to attack the player who went last.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to get a benefit out of it and you have to get through, then you're going to attack the player that's open, that's the sort of...
Right.
There's so many factors to weigh though, because you're also weighing like how good is their strategy and their deck against my strategy and my deck. Are they playing black, and are they likely to be using life as a resource?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Are they likely to have answers? Are they likely to seek reprisal? So when we say all things being equal, it's rarely actually equal.
It's never equal.
Yeah.
But
and then you just sort of lean towards like earlier in the turn order, because sometimes you're like narrow it down as like not this one, but between these two, okay, they went earlier, I'll attack them if I have unlimited choices, which you normally don't.
Right. You talked a little bit about game memory, where you were saying that you want to attack the person that it'll take the longest time before they're able to attack you back.
Ooh, that's actually really another thing to weigh. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that was what I was getting at, is this idea that like if you have a free attack, nobody has blockers, and you attack the person to your left, who's going right after you, they're going to be like, well, you attacked me, I'm going to attack you, because they remember last turn when you attacked them. But if you attack the player to your right, there's who is acting last.
2 full turns.
Have to happen before they do it, and they're like, I don't remember that you attacked me for 2. They just did something crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
And you get this sort of gap where you're like, I'm not worried about that. The game's changed in the last 2 turns. So if you're going to harm somebody, doing it in a way that's like, well, maybe they'll forget about it by the time they get to do anything about it.
And they often do.
Yeah.
Right.
Happens all the time, where somebody does something to you and you're like, oh, I'm going to swords that thing just to get back at him. And then the next player goes and you're like, wait, no, that thing's scary. I'm going to kill that. And then the next player goes and it's like, oh man. And there's this thing in psychology, primacy and recency, which is the things that tend to stand out the most in our mind are the first thing that happened and the most recent thing that happened. And the stuff in the middle tends to be sort of lost in the mix because our brain just can't hold everything. So
especially in a commander game. Gosh.
So yet another thing to weigh, and it's often probably right to attack the players to the right, because often the player to your right went earlier in turn order as well.
Yep.
Unless they were literally the fourth player and you're the first player, everybody else went earlier than you.
Right. It's also interesting when creatures come down on the battlefield. I think you have a habit of looking at the entire battlefield as your problem. But you're actually slightly more vulnerable to the creatures that were deployed in turn order ahead of you. So the ones that are on your right, saying if you go third, the ones deployed by second and first, because they're going to be able to attack sooner than the ones that come down on turn 4.
Right.
There's just more time in between. So like if the player that's going in fourth, if I'm in the third seat, the player that's going fourth plays an Atali, but the player who's in first also has an Atali, I'm much more worried about the one that's going to attack first than the one that gets deployed after, because there's just so much time in between a creature getting played after you and a creature that's getting played before you. Like a board wipe could get played, some other player could have a sorcery speed removal spell, lots of things can happen. So if you're like, I can remove one thing, removing the thing that's upwind of you is the way I think of it.
The one that's on deck.
The one that's on deck, the one that's going next is...
Back into threat assessment a little bit, where I start thinking, or whenever I'm thinking about like, what's the problem, I just say like, what is trouble for me right now?
Yeah, and you're going to have more time to defend yourself against a creature that's going after you.
Right.
So if they play an Atali immediately after you, you're going to have a turn before that Atali attacks. You can put creatures onto the battlefield. You can dig to find a removal spell. But the one that's going that went before you, that's attacking next. You have no time to defend yourself.
We're talking about old Atali, by the way.
Yeah.
New Atali, you're cooked.
Yeah, we're talking
no
about
matter where they play that one.
Yeah, and even the stuff they get off the Atali is going to be used against you faster than the Atali itself. So I like that. We're sort of talking about going last and like how you might navigate going last and trying to overcome the disadvantage of it. I think you're really good at this, Rachel. And this is all leading me to think like when you are last, you're already sort of disadvantaged. And one of the advantages of being disadvantaged is you appear disadvantaged, so you're not as big of a threat. And so it may be smart to lean into that rather than away from it. Like look more disadvantaged and try and make the fact that you are weaker, quote unquote, an advantage.
Sandbag your Soul Ring. Don't play like a crazy card that automatically makes the table freak out. Don't play the Atali if there's another Atali. Because you need to use that to your advantage. That is the only advantage you have.
Manage your position.
It's a difficult line to walk because you definitely also don't want to do nothing.
You have to develop.
Like if you have a Soul Ring and your opening hand and you're going forth, it's like, I got to play it safe. I can't deploy this now. It's just going to turn everyone's heads towards me. But gauging when is going to be the most effective time to play it is going to be the big challenge, right? Like what you said, like I want to find the moment that's going to surge me ahead and they have the least amount of time to retaliate or catch back up.
But until the surge ahead, you want to very carefully like maintain your exact position, which is usually like, being a little stronger than you look and making sure that the eyes don't turn towards you.
So we're starting to shift the conversation towards mana development and away from combat. So I want to talk about this as well because Seat 1 is also advantaged when it comes to mana development because they get to ramp first. They get, we most often ramp on turn 2, which means they're deploying it first, which means they get to untap with it first. And they're going to have natural land drops first. Like they are naturally have more mana than you if you haven't gone yet, and they have.
They're casting better spells because they have more mana, so they're casting 4 drops when you're still casting 2 drops if they've ramped.
But mana ramp is a way that can help you sort of combat the disadvantage of going last. If you can out-ramp the people that went ahead of you in turn order, you can pass them in terms of mana development at least. So having a hand that's a little bit more ramp heavy, that might be a little less aggro focused, you might take even a little bit more damage, but you can develop your mana. It gives you time to sort of close that mana advantage gap.
Rituals probably get a little better when you're in last place or later in the turn order, because again, we're talking about that burst forward, and it's also like a mana advantage you have that they can't see. And that's kind of what you want, because one of the dangers is like if you just massive ramp and somebody looks over and goes, well, they're gonna have 12 mana on their next turn. It's kind of obvious that like that could turn the Eye of Sauron towards you. So you just have to be a little bit careful. But I do agree, like developing is pretty important in fourth position. I would sacrifice board presence, in exchange for maybe developing a little bit more.
Yeah, it's what you said about like you have to be stronger than you look, and like hyper ramping can be the thing that like turns everyone's ire towards you. But there's been a lot of games where like someone plays Open the Way, X = 4, and then everyone glosses over it, but that's the spell that won them the game.
Right.
On the next turn, they're like, I have 8 mana, play this, play this, play this. And like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, it helps you do that surge effect, jump into first place. Yeah.
And I'd say it's one of the hardest things for players to be good at, which is correctly threat assessing things they cannot see.
Right.
So classically, I draw a lot of cards, and one of the reasons that that's really good is that a lot of players just don't have a good handle on being able to properly threat assess how much stronger you are just from drawing a lot of cards. But this person has 4 creatures out and you've only got 1. And a lot of times they'll just default to, well, I can see a lot of stuff on their board. They're a bigger threat. And it's like, he just drew 10 cards.
Yeah.
Like he's going to play the best stuff for the next couple of turns. And he should be the threat, but it's just, it's just a thing that players mess up all the time. I think ramp can be the same thing where it's like, okay, but they've got 12 mana available to them on their next turn. They're very, very scared, but they're like, yeah, but you got that flyer.
Yeah.
That thing might hit me for 4.
I can't
have that.
I like that. I don't. My life total will go down.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, the more things that we were thinking about for this episode, the more cards that you can point to that are just better if you're in first.
Yeah.
And I want to have the conversation about how your seat position affects card quality, because it is so much more drastic than you think. And it'll help you think about what hands are good. When you're looking at your hand and being able to evaluate if this is a good hand or not. I did want to mention this because I don't think a lot of Commander players do this necessarily, is technically when you're playing Magic, you should determine who's going first before you resolve mulligans. Because that gives you important information in your what's good in your hand. So if you know that you're going fourth, you know that Ragavan is a lot worse of a card than if you're going first.
Yeah.
And you know that maybe Cultivate, or a card that's a little bit slower, is better if you're going last. So figuring out what seat position you're in is actually really important and should be done before you do any of your mulligans.
Yeah, and how often are you considering what turn you are going to be seated in, or what turn order, when thinking about your mulligan decision? Like, if the answer is never, then that's clearly wrong. You should be thinking about most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it, because a lot of the cards that are best in Commander are even better if you're going first. And this is talking about cards that are that work based on your opponents taking game actions. So this is Esper Sentinel, this is Rhystic Study, this is Mystic Remora, even stuff like Lotho Corrupt Sheriff are better if you're going first, because they start working on the turn that you cast them.
Yeah, you look at something like Mystic Remora, and we've seen this happen timeless times, where it's like someone going forth throws out a Mystic Remora. Well, everyone's already cast their Arcane Signets and Rampant Growths. Now everyone's casting their commander.
Yeah, they cast their creatures.
And so it's too late for the Mystic Remora to get any value. You end up holding onto it for longer than you need to.
Right. Like a Mystic Remora played on turn 1 by the player going first starts working on turn 1. So their Mystic Remora is going to draw on the second one or the third one and the fourth seat. They're going to see cards from turn 1. If you're in the fourth seat and you play a Mystic Remora, it will have missed all of the cards from you played it on the same turn, but you've missed 2 turns of value. So even though you played the same card on the same turn, it's drawn you 2 fewer cards. It's drawn you.
It just has a chance to draw you less, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is the same for any kind of card. I was even thinking about Jeska's Will, which gives you mana based on the number of cards in people's hands.
Oh, it's worse if you're going fourth because they have less cards in their hand.
They've deployed all their cards already.
Unless you're playing against me, I've had more time to draw more cards.
That's true. It depends on your play group. But it's just this really, like, you're looking at these cards in your hand and you're like, I've got a Rhystic Study, I'm going fourth, this is going to be great. And you're like, well,
maybe not. Yeah.
It is going to be good. It's very powerful, but it is not as good as the Rhystic Studies that got played earlier in the turn order.
Yeah.
One that's close, I think, is Smothering Tithe. Like, we talk about it and we're like, is this one of the ones that's worse going forth? I don't know how, no one ever pays the 2 for Smothering Tithe. So I don't know if it'll make you any less treasure. You won't be able to use the mana as effectively, I think, as if you were going first. You just have more time is passing technically, but I think that one's just as strong.
I mean,
it's still stronger
turns.
earlier
Yeah.
because you miss turns, but also the fact that like their card draw engines are going to be set up or getting set up earlier, right? So you want your Smothering Tithe out basically earlier to take advantage of any cards they might draw. Yeah, I think it's the same theory as the Fixetti or Esper Sentinel. It doesn't really change it.
If you, sorry, I want to talk about this more. If you play a Smothering Tithe early, let's say you're going first, and you go Arcane Signet Smothering Tithe.
Sure.
Most games that you play in casual, I don't know, Smothering Tithe is kind of bracket 3, bracket 4, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a game
The card
changer.
advantage engines probably won't be down by the time that the Smothering Tithe hits the table. But if I'm going fourth and I play Smothering Tithe, everyone already has their, like, if someone has a Ristic Study in play, someone has a Ledger Treader in play, it'll probably see more cards drawn on average.
But the one that was played on turn 1 still sees the card draw engines,
and
right?
just got those other 3 draws. Unless they wouldn't deploy their card draw engine, but also that's also winning because you're stopping them from deploying their card draw engine.
Right, that one I think is still better earlier in the turn rotation. It's just like you have the opportunity to see 3 more turns of cards than the player who's going last. You have 3 more treasures.
You have the opportunity to use that mana before earlier, right?
Thing,
to counterspell the...
It feels like anything that's templated in this way is going to still be advantaged towards the earlier turn order.
Yeah, so we were looking at some cards that were like, what cards are better that are played a little bit later in...
Yeah, that's the big question is like, what is better later? Because it's hard to design cards this way, and they've tried, and it often doesn't work. In fact, the cards that are like, this is good for the last player, but it's even better for the first player still.
Right. All the catch-up mechanic stuff doesn't really do what you want it to, because you want it to push you further ahead, and all it will ever do is put you at parity with the person who's furthest ahead, at most, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I think catch-up mechanics are non-functional, basically, if you're going first. So they're a good example of cards that can be better if you're going later in the turn order. So we're talking about like Land Tax or Knight of the White Orchid or like a Gemstone Caverns. Obviously, it doesn't work if you're going first. They will start getting you value earlier unless you have synergy around them if you're sitting in C1, which is very hard to get behind if you're in C1. But another big catch-up mechanic that I think we're going to talk about a lot today is Dockside.
Yeah.
Dockside is an example of a card that does work better if you're later.
Sure.
It works really good in first seat too, and I obviously Dockside I think is too powerful regardless of what seat you're in. But if you're in seat 4, it cares about the stuff that has already happened.
Yeah.
So if you're on seat 2 and you play a Dockside, you're going to see less stuff than if you're in seat 4.
Yeah.
So Dockside is actually a good example of a card that we would need to model cards around.
Yep. You heard it here, folks. Unban Dockside.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is you need the kind of card that cares about your opponents having already done stuff.
Yeah.
Not, are they going to do stuff?
Yes.
It's, did they do stuff?
That's really smart.
And I think that is the kind of card that we really need to see more of to have a card that is better in seat 4.
We're going to talk about it a little bit later in the episode probably, but the Turbulent Lands is an example of this. The ones that are like the more, if they've played 8 or more lands, it comes in untapped. Like that's a huge.
So it comes in, it's if your opponents have 8 or more lands, it comes in untapped. So it comes in untapped a turn earlier if you're in C3 or 4 and everybody's hitting their land drops. Which is cool. So it
seems like that would help the 4th player, but in practice, it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't make a huge difference.
I think 8 is not enough. And then the problem you run into is if you raise that number to where it would matter and advantage the 4th player, it becomes too bad of a card to play in a situation where you don't know whether you're going to go first or last. So that's the really tough thing. And the problem with Dockside, obviously it's still too powerful just too powerful in general. But like the amount of advantage it gives to the last player is not that much greater than the amount of advantage it gives to the first player.
Right.
That gap is, it's hard to have that gap exist and then the card still be playable.
Yeah. Something we were talking about that is better from C3 or 4 is fogs. And that is because you are easier to attack. So being able to blank those combats, effectively force your opponents to skip that combat, gives you an opportunity to be like, okay, now I've had one more combat than you because I made you skip one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So fogs give you do sort of help you jump that gap a little bit, but it's only in combat that it really gives you that like actual advantage, and obviously in your life total.
Yeah, and I think fogs in general are just underrated in Commander. And people should play more fogs. Like, you know, a one-off or maybe 2 fogs in a deck. It's amazing how often that will kind of turn the tide. You know,
what's the name of the free one? The Commander one, Haze.
Obscuring Haze.
Obscuring Haze. I think that card is way more playable than people give it credit for. It's got a few secrets in there, but it's like what you said, where if the only thing you do on turn 4 as 4th player is play your Commander, but you have this in your hand, like that's a huge swing for someone who goes for a big attack against you, trying to leverage that turn order advantage.
Well, it gives you that burst ahead quality late in game too, where it's like it looks like you're dead. You have this thing that they don't know you're ready for. They make that swing for the win. You go, nope, blank that, kind of, you know, blank your whole turn, and now I get my turn that I was not supposed to get, and that's the turn I can try and win on. And it's still a card that's good early, even if you're in seat 1 or 2, maybe a little worse than it would be in C4, but you can find ways to deploy it. So it doesn't like disadvantage you to put it into your deck in the way that like some cards with the too big of a gap might.
Yeah, and so again, you can mulligan to find these cards that are better in C3. If you're in C3 or 4 and you have a fog in your hand, you're like, great, this is going to come in handy earlier. If you're in seat 1 or 2, maybe the fog is less helpful because you're not really trying to close that gap. You don't have the same opportunity to be attacked, and you keep in mind that like your turn 1 Esper Sentinel is a little less functional. Like just keeping an idea on an eye out on what cards are better or worse in your seat position when you're mulliganing is going to give you a higher quality hand long term.
You're still keeping the Esper Sentinel.
You're still keeping the Esper Sentinel.
It's good enough.
But like it helps you evaluate the hand. If you're like, the only thing that I can play in this hand is the Esper Sentinel, you're like, it's a risk.
That's why you talk so much about why it's important to run more lands too.
Right.
Because you don't want to ever have to mulligan a hand because there's not enough lands in it. But if you're playing the right amount of lands, the percentage that you'll have 3 or 4 lands in your hand is high enough that you can actually look for cards that you need depending on your seat.
It means you can actually make decisions based on the spells in your hand versus just the number of lands you have. It gives you more flexibility in the early game if you're not making these simple decisions based on like, well, I don't have enough lands, so I have to mulligan this. So, okay, we've talked about a lot. We've got even more to talk about, including Goad, board wipes, how all of these things are affected by your seat position, and
how it affects politics.
How it affects politics.
Yeah.
All of these things we're going to talk about in this episode, but we have to take a quick break to hear a few words from our sponsors. This message is sponsored by RAYCON.
Hail, puny 3-drops! The summer sun heralds the return of Sun Titan! Now, I'll admit, I'm not as commander viable as I used to be, but that means I have more time on my giant hands. So I'm going to spend it blasting some highly playable tunes on my RAYCON Everyday Earbuds Classic. My RAYCONs have become an instant staple in my day-to-day life. Their active noise cancellation makes them the best sound blocker on the battlefield or the beach. And multi-point connectivity lets them pair with 2 devices at once. A classic 2-for-1, just like Sun Titan! Plus, with their 32-hour battery life, I never have to reanimate them, because they never die in the first place. They've got cool colors like my favorite, rose gold, and they're just half the price of the big brands. That's why RAYCONs deserve a slot in 100% of summer routines, as opposed to the 8% of decks that I get a slot. And you know what? That's actually still pretty good. Sun Titan!
The Everyday Earbuds Classics are a great option for everyday listening. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/command to get 20% off. Thanks to RAYCON for sponsoring. Hey Josh. Oh wow, is all this stuff for merch orders?
Yeah, but don't worry, I've got this. I call upon the magic word of Shopify!
Whoa, where'd everything go?
It is on the way to our customers.
That's incredible. You learned real magic?
No, I learned real editing to showcase the power of Shopify. They're the business partner that makes the day-to-day hassle disappear. They offer world-class expertise in everything, from inventory to shipping to returns. Plus, they make customers' lives easy with simple checkout that saves key details if you accidentally close the tab. Since Shopify is handling the tough stuff, I'm free to focus on growing the business, whether that's more merch, more content, you name it. So it's no mystery why Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses worldwide, including the Command Zone.
That's amazing. Here, let me try. Shopify! It worked!
Wow.
Wait, I had a deck in there.
Ooh, sorry, it's on the way to Ohio now.
Oh.
With Shopify, nothing stands between your idea and a real business, so go make it one. If you're ready to stop putting off your business and start hearing, then you're ready for Shopify. Start your free trial at shopify.com/TCC today. You heard that right. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/TCZ. That's shopify.com/TCZ.
Rise and shine, Lurgoyf lovers. It's me, Disa the Restless. Or now, Disa the Restful. You see, taming Tarmogoyfs takes a lot of energy. Easy there, Terry. And I just wasn't getting enough sleep on my old, uncomfortable mattress. I tried counting card types in graveyards, but I'd run out at 9. That's when I got my Aurora Lux cooling mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. And now I sleep like a baby Baragoyf, and baby Barry sleeps great. Their cooling foam feels like an ice age. It keeps me dozing all night long. Plus, their commitment to back health means I wake up ready for an active day corralling Cosmogoyfs. No! Stay out of orbit, Carrie! They've got mattresses for every body type and sleep style. And with a 120-night comfort trial and hassle-free returns, you've got no reason not to try it. Thanks to Brooklyn Bedding, I can throw my dingy old mattress into the graveyard. Hey, it counts as an artifact in there. Whoa, these Lurgoyfs are getting huge. Calm down, Larry!
Go to brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code COMMAND at checkout to get 30% off site-wide as part of the summer sale. That's brooklynbedding.com and promo code COMMAND for 30% off site-wide. This is a limited time offer, not available anywhere else. brooklynbedding.com, promo code COMMAND. You know what's my favorite thing about ARCHIDEKT? The playtester. ARCHIDEKT is the deck builder with the best goldfishing experience out there, period. Clicking cards does exactly what you want. From drawing to playing to tapping, it can handle counters, tokens, dice. Whatever your deck does, ARCHIDEKT can help you test it. And it's fast, too. Once you get the hang of it, you can test a turn 5 or 6 in like a minute, which I love because I will literally goldfish 100 times. And the more you goldfish, the better your deck's gonna be. I used to take forever to do it in paper, but I can't go back to that life. This playtester is just too good.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest Commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/command zone to get started. That's ARCHIDEKT.com/command zone. Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about turn order and how it affects your strategy. We're going to start talking about board wipes.
Yep.
Because board wipes have an ability to sort of reset turn order depending on how they're deployed.
I think at first you would think like board wipe gotta be good for the later players in turn order because it's sort of a catch-up mechanic, right? Everybody deploys a lot of stuff and you blow up all that stuff.
Yeah.
How can that not be something that's good for the people later in the turn?
It doesn't actually do that because all that happens is you destroy all the things, no one has anything, and then you pass and everyone starts rebuilding.
And you're still rebuilding last.
Yeah, there's nothing on your board by the time that everyone has played something because you just wiped everything off your own board as well.
Yeah. You could argue you're almost in a worse position because what they're getting, the mana advantage they're getting on you is greater than it was earlier in the game when they're like, I put out a thing that, you put out your 2 and I put out my 3, but now I'm putting out 8 mana worth of stuff.
Yep.
And then they're putting out 8 mana worth of stuff. Then they're putting out 1 mana worth of stuff. So you're untapping with nothing versus 24 mana worth of stuff.
It's all going to be attacking first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just effectively skipped your turn to go back to 0. So the theory behind board wipes is the board wipe is typically best for the player who gets to deploy right after the board wipe. Mm-hmm. So it's either the player immediately to the left of the one playing the board wipe. So if they tap out for an austere command and pass, the player to my left, so it would be Reggie in this situation, gets to rebuild first. It's great for Reggie.
Fantastic.
But if you have something like a blasphemous act,
This is why it's so good.
That is a very cheap board wipe. It lets you wipe the board and let you be the person that gets to rebuild first because you've only spent 1 mana on the board wipe. Now, you're the player deploying creatures first, you're the player using your mana first, and they have to follow you. So it can reset the turn order, but it has to be an efficient board wipe or you're just sort of skipping your turn.
Or an asymmetrical board wipe, right?
Right.
You're playing dragons and you play a Crux of Fate or something like that. It can be the same thing where you've technically technically rebuilt first because you've lost nothing from the board wipe.
And I
but
think
those are good early in turn order. I mean, I guess Blasphemous Act is too.
Yeah.
But the one-sided board wipes, which I think most people are trying to run as many of those as possible when it makes sense. Yeah, but I think what Rachel said is why we see that like sort of the best board wipes in the format are the lower mana cost ones. Toxic Deluge,
Split Up.
Yeah, exactly. Split Up, stuff like that. Well, Split Up's also one-sided often.
Yeah, Vanquish the Horde.
Yeah,
Honestly,
because you
I
don't
think
have to
Vanquish the
fully
Horde isn't played.
redeploy. Even just a half redeployment, or even just getting a thing out first. Like, so a lot of times, a board wipe plus a 3-drop is enough advantage that you are still. Everybody else redeploys, but you have a thing that can act or that can trigger or something, and that can often be enough. But yeah, it's pretty bad for you in turn 4 to be the one answering all the problems, and then putting yourself back in the passenger seat, or just locking yourself into it almost. Because it's like, oh, I answered all the problems, and then it comes back to my turn.
There's so many problems again.
Exactly. Did I
Yeah.
really answer any problems?
Yeah, and I want to make it clear: rebuilding doesn't mean you have a full board.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you've dumped your whole hand and now you're the threat. All it can mean is be like, okay, I cast a board wipe, I cast a Smothering Tide, pass. That's a great rebuild.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you're developing your board, you're developing your mana, you're setting up for a next turn, and it just means that you sort of made a deposit on a later turn. So you don't have to necessarily play like a 1-mana board wipe. There's not that many, but that's why they're so good. And it could be a thing that you're looking for when you're mulliganing at the beginning of the game, to be like,
sure.
okay, I have a Blasphemous Act, so I know that I'm going to develop my mana, I'm going to chill, I'm going to cast the Blasphemous Act after everybody's deployed stuff, and then I'm going to cast my commander. That's a great way to surge into the lead, because you've taken all of their stuff away. You played like you knew a board wipe was coming, and you're the first one to redeploy.
That's why I think that as much as the inefficient board wipes do suck going forth, at least you have that small advantage of like, well, I know I have a board wipe and I know I want to use it because I'm going last. So I'm going to sandbag all of my creatures and all my value engines for now, drop this austere command in. And even if I can't rebuild now, which sucks, at least I know I'll have my game plan started after everyone has lost theirs. It's something. It's not great, but it's something.
Yeah, I think it will work better too the more sort of casual the meta is, where they maybe don't have as much card draw, because there is an advantage to the board wipe of like, you just lose a lot less stuff than they do, and maybe they only have 2 cards left in their hand and can't fully deploy. In our playgroup, that never happens because everyone's good at deck building and has a lot of card throughput, and so you board wipe it. They still have a lot of gas almost always. So, we don't really play in games where people are running out of cards in their hand. But if you're playing in those types of games, board wipes become a lot better for the fact that Reggie just said, which is like, you have it, you can hold back some of your stuff, really do like a 12 for 1, and they're like, crap, I'm just living off the top of my deck now.
Right.
Yeah.
That could be a huge advantage if you time it right, if you can answer our draw engines before you deploy that. So board wipes can be a good tool, but again, only if you can time it properly, if you can play around it. We want to move on to the next effect, which is Goad. Goad has become a more popular control mechanic in Commander, and it is very interesting the way that Goad is affected based on turn order. So if you're playing a Goad deck or you're playing against it, it's a really important thing to keep in mind, because goading often affects the player going immediately after the goad player the worst. So if the goad player is in seat 2, seat 3 is the first one to be goaded, and they have to make their goad attacks before, like, while all the defenses are up, and the least has sort of changed.
So if it's Disrupt Decorum, everyone's stuff gets goaded. I go
it's really
immediately
bad for the player you're left,
Yeah, I have to swing all my stuff into their blockers that haven't had to attack yet, and now I have no blockers.
Right.
Yeah, you can deploy 1 or 2 after, but yeah.
So if a Disrupt Decorum happens and you're the player seated to the right of the Disrupt Decorum, you're kind of like, well, I can make some blocks and I can block with the things that are going to die anyway. I'm not as affected by what happened with the Disrupt Decorum. Now, this gets really interesting with a card like Taunt from the Ramparts. Taunt from the Ramparts looks very, very similar to Disrupt Decorum. It goads all creatures, but it says that the goaded creatures can't block.
Sneaky line of text right there.
So now, if you're the first player to attack right after the Taunt from the Rampart, you're like, great. No one has blockers.
Yeah.
I can attack. They couldn't block anyway. They can't block any of my stuff. And I'm the first one to deploy creatures that can block.
Oh, that's huge.
So
I'm less likely to get a crackback.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're the player immediately to the next one to act after the taunt from the rampart, you're actually the most advantaged.
yeah. And the
Whereas
person
to the
that's
right
you're
is
screwed.
the least.
You're like,
the least advantage because you're like, I can't block for 2 more attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get slammed.
oh man, that's crazy. The
Isn't
way
that-
that it's a very similar Goad effect, but it flips the entire thing on its head. Oftentimes, Taunt from the Rampart is just a KO for the person to the right of the
Yes.
Goad deck. Yeah.
And that is something to keep in mind. If you're casting a taunt from the rampart, you have to know that maybe it saves your life and you have to cast it regardless, but you have to know it's going to affect the player to your right the most, and it's going to affect the player to your left the least.
Yeah, so if the left is your arch enemy,
Yes.
it may be not that great.
It may be not that great. It just gives them free attacks. They can swing out and kill your 2 opponents, and then you're staring down the big bad.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I mean, especially when you're casting Disrupt Decorum as well. But yeah, if you have a Goad deck at the table, keep an eye on where they are, especially in relationship to you. Are you on the right? Are you on the left? How often, should you have creatures? Should you play them? Because
You probably always want to hold one.
Right?
Yeah.
Just so you can deploy post-combat to always have a blocker if you're going to need it. Yeah.
Yeah. If the Goad player is on your left, it's often great for you because it means you can team up with them to be like, hey, if you Goad their little thing, I have this blocker that you could
send
and I
it
can
into, yeah.
defend. So they're actually a good teammate for you because it affects you the least, their strategy, and you can offer the most to them.
Yeah, if you're going to the right of the Goad player, you're
Careful.
I was gonna say you're in a lot more trouble. That's when you want to be a lot more defensive, like you talked about before. Hold. I don't even know. Like you need to have a lot of removal, I guess. In your opening hand going against the Goad deck if you're to the right of them, because you know that most situations that you're in, you're going to be getting attacked most often.
I think if you're going to the right of a Goad deck, if you see a Goad commander in the command zone there, you're like, okay, I want my removal and it's going to be important for me to save it because it means that some of the big stuff is going to be naturally coming at me and I'm going to have a tough time defending on the board because my stuff can get goaded super easily and I'm not going to be able to defend myself very well against it.
You probably want to also just protect your life total more than you normally would. So don't make risky decisions. Don't play like Jimmy where you just pay a ton of life for stuff. Just be a little more conservative.
Sure.
Your hand with a Sylvan Librarian, it's probably not as good.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, just think about your life total a little more.
All right, let's talk about another mechanic that's popular these days. It's the Monarch.
Oh.
Another mechanic that's bad for the people going late.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for you to attack. So we talked a lot about how the combat is really difficult if you're the player going last. And if the Monarch is in play, it's going to be even more difficult for you to take it.
Yeah, you probably don't want to. You don't want to put the Monarch into the game unless you're very secured about your position if you're going fourth, because you just are the easiest default target in most scenarios. And then it's also harder for you to grab the Monarch back.
Yep.
Yeah.
The initiative is very similar. I have a 5-color initiative dungeons deck, and that's always the plight, right? Is I'm like, I can't play this thing if I'm going late in the turn order because I just know that someone's going to have a flyer or someone's going to have an evasive creature, and I won't have, if I'm fourth, I just have one creature when everyone else will have 2. It's just the way the math works out.
It's also worth knowing when you take the Monarch, who is going to take it from you?
Yeah.
You said, who are you worried about? Because if you take the Monarch and the person going after you has a 5/5 flyer, are you interested in being hit by this 5/5 flyer? Maybe the card is not worth the amount of damage that you're going to get back to have taken the card. Maybe it is, but that is something that you have to weigh.
Yeah, I think about this a lot when the Monarch's in play and when you're taking the Monarch. I think people just think I got to take that Monarch and get that card. But you definitely want to think about okay, but then I'm putting a target on myself that somebody's going to come at me. And who's that person going to be? Because not all of your opponents are created equal in that moment. And a lot of times, if you look to your left and you're like, okay, that player's not super scary, doesn't have an Ulamog or something nuts, and I can maybe just offer them the Monarch, hey, I'll let your 2 power thing hit me just so you can have the Monarch and draw the card. And it seems like you're doing them a favor, but what you're doing is saying, the Monarch's no good to me. Someone's going to take it. I'd rather you have it because the next player after you has a 7/7 or has something scary, and it's going to want the card draw. So I'd rather just deflect that from me. So geography matters a lot. Whereas at the other side of it, if the player on my left is very, very scary, like I probably won't even take the Monarch. I'll just leave it where it is. And one of the good things about the Monarch is it helps you really even better sort of predict where aggression is going to go, which is one of the things about threat assessment that you're always trying to figure out is like, there's a ton of scary stuff and I can't answer it all. I should only answer the stuff that's really a problem for me. And the Monarch says, if someone else has the Monarch, a lot of that stuff is likely less of a problem for me because you never really know. You're just, it's made up percentages in the sky.
Right. Yeah, but keeping that in mind and being like, okay, just thinking a couple turns ahead. If you're like, I take the initiative here and I need it to go get the land. How do I get rid of this in time for me to not have this bullseye on my back? Can I defend it all the way to my upkeep? Probably not. So how do I want this to go? And I don't want this person to attack me, and I'm fine with this person attacking me. If you have a removal spell in your hand or something, and you take the Monarch and somebody sends like a 4/4 flying at you, that you're like, I'm not really worried about this 4/4 flying, but now I feel pressured to use this removal spell in a way that I'm not interested in doing it because it'll give them a card, and I'm going to remove this Sarah's Angel, but I'm not going to be able to use this later. So I think that is a situation I've accidentally gotten myself into a lot, where I'm like, well, now they're going to take the initiative and they're going to do this thing and that'll be crazy and I don't want them to have it, but I've made myself the target for that and suddenly wasted a removal spell in a way that I haven't want to.
The Monarch and the initiative are political tools, or they can be political tools. Like if you are aware of where you sit, who the target is, and where you want the Monarch and the initiative to go whenever you're deploying these cards or whenever you're deciding to take these cards, you can really you can corner a lot of aggression. You can shift the tides in ways that not a lot of other mechanics can do. So that's why I like them.
Yeah, I think too, thinking ahead is really important, like you said, Rachel. And a lot of times you can just make the deal before you even take it.
Sure,
so you can be like, I really want that Monarch because I want that card draw, but I don't want you to hit me with that thing. So maybe I don't want it. And then you can say, what if I take it and I let you have it easily? You just hit me with that little thing and I won't do anything about it, but you don't hit me with the big thing.
All right,
if they don't take that deal, cool, Monarch stays where it is. But a lot of times they're like, this is easy for me because now I have full flexibility. I can send my little thing at them, but my big thing can go where I want it to go. And if they turn down your deal, it means the big thing's probably coming at you and they want it to. And that also gives you information.
Great information.
And then now it's like, cool, I do want my removal spell on that thing because it is a problem for me. But also if you took my deal to hit me with the little thing and the big thing goes elsewhere, cool, I save my removal spell and also know that thing's not a problem for me, at least in the near future. So you just get a lot of information from the Monarch. So but if you don't think ahead in that manner and make those deals before you take the Monarch, if you take it and then have that conversation, you're in a much weaker negotiating position, right?
You just have lots fewer options. Chosen your own adventure before reading the chapter. All right. We're talking about interaction and how turn order affects how and when you spend removal spells. And I think interaction is very interesting because when you're behind, you're more likely to be in situations where you want to spend removal spells, but also spending resources, spending cards on removing an advantage that a player already has means you're not spending resources and time developing your own board to close that gap. So it's a very challenging thing to deploy when you're the player who's already naturally disadvantaged.
You want to be reactive whenever you are going forth. It's just instinctual. If someone plays a big threat on a turn where you could hold up your mana for interaction or deploy a threat of your own, you're like, if I play this creature, I will have nothing for the turn that they go for their big play. So maybe I should interact here. But I guess a little bit of it's fighting that instinct and being like, I have to leverage what little advantage I can get.
That's such a good point. Hang on. Because if you're on turn 4, like let's say you're on turn 6 and you're going 4th and you've played your turn 6, immediately after you is turn 7, which is when things start to get dangerous.
Yeah.
So you have to start holding up your mana, being like, okay, I know immediately what's happening after me is turn 7, which is when I want to have some amount of disruption up. So you're sort of forced into the situation where you're like, they're going to get to the winning part before I am.
Yep.
Which means I have to be ready to anticipate the winning part of the game earlier than the player who's going first, who is only anticipating for turn 6.
Yeah. I think it's a trap to think that way, though.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, back to the race analogy, you're starting off, you're in 4th place, there's 3 cars in front of you. What good does it do you to red shell one of the cars in front of you? But you'll still be in 3rd.
Yeah.
It won't have helped you that much, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you're naturally disadvantaged in 4th. We're talking earlier, it kind of, board wipes are in a similar spot. We talked earlier about like you should be setting up for this big burst forward at the last possible instance. And that's how I would want to use my interaction. I don't want to police the table because it'll just put me farther and farther behind. And, you know, I stop player 1, now player 2 and 3, I'm still behind them. So I need to play in a risky way, I think, as far as like, hey, I can't be answering problems. And if it turns out that player 1 realizes their advantage on turn 7 and wins there, because player 2 and 3 couldn't stop them, that's fine. I was going to lose that game to player 2 or 3. The only way I have a chance to win this game is if I assume it's going to work out. Player 1 will not win. Player 2 or 3 will be able to stop each other, or they'll fight amongst themselves, and then give myself that opportunity to do that burst forward play.
Right.
But if I just am like, stop that, I'm never going to win this game.
You haven't developed your board.
All I'm doing is stopping things. So, sooner or later, I'm going to run out of the ability to do that, and my last, my 4th player seeding is going to be realized.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to have the appetite for like, hey, there will be some games where like I will lose because of this, but it will give me an overall better chance to win if I just don't try and police the table very much at all from the 4th seed.
It's a play to win mindset, not a play to don't die. Because you know that you're disadvantaged in seed 4. You know you have to make up that difference. But also I think this is, we talked about the power of efficient board wipes, and I think this is also the power of efficient removal spells, is being able to like, okay, I'm in seed 4. I can remove 1 creature. I've got a swords up, but I have to spend the rest of the turn developing my board. And at least I know that like if 1 creature comes my way, I'm not going to die. But you can't hold up like a ton of disruption, obviously. You can't protect everything, which is why I don't like spells like Generous Gift and Beast Within as much, because yes, you can answer everything, but it's going to cost you half your turn.
Yeah.
And that disadvantage is so great when you're in 4th and you're like, okay, I can play a 3-drop and hold up Beast Within. That loses you the game. You're going to lose the game if you do that on turn 6. So it's one of those things where like, okay, I'm going to dump as much as I can on the board, and I've got a treasure that I can crack in an emergency. But you're right, you have to rely on the other 2 players who are better set up to handle this player to handle them. Otherwise, you're going to be in a really tough spot.
It's a philosophy that I love from cEDH, where it's just like it's infinitely better to just go for the win than it is to stop your opponents from trying to win. If you have an opportunity to push the advantage, go for the lead in the race, you should go for it instead of doing what you can to disrupt the person directly in front of you.
Yeah, only if you're grabbing the lead in the race. Yes. I think moving up a position is not what you're necessarily trying to do. You're trying to set up a burst to the finish line first.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing about this is you're last in terms of priority. So the other 2 players have to make a decision whether they're going to disrupt, and you're last in terms of that. So they're actually in a decent spot. Again, being earlier in turn order is advantage, especially in cEDH situations when you're like, well, I know you've got a counter spell and I can make you use it right here, or we're all going to lose. But if you're in 4th, you're like, I'm not going to use it because I can't, like...
They call it priority bullying.
It's priority bullying. You can be priority bullied the later you are in turn order.
Yeah, that's why I think like there's a lot of situations where you should just tap out. and just like play your thing and be like, yep, hope you guys don't have it.
Good luck.
Good luck. But I'm not going to win this game
Yeah.
if I'm the one stopping stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, whatever. I don't get any points for being third instead of fourth. So I'm just going to set myself up best to have a chance to win. Assume that amongst the three of you, you'll be able to stop each other from winning, and then that will give me at least a shot. And I think that's probably right more often than we give it credit for.
Yeah. I also wanted to make the point here that this is why sorcery speed disruption is so rough, especially if you're going fourth, because you're deploying your disruption on turn 6, and you can only disrupt their turn 6 plays.
Yep.
You don't get the opportunity to disrupt their turn 7 plays, which are the plays that you're actually worried about, because those are the ones that are going to kill you, likely. So making sure that most of your disruption can happen whenever is so much more important when you're in last, which means you should just always be playing instant speed disruption when you can.
Yeah. I like our next point here, which is going to dovetail into us talking about politics and deal making and stuff. But my assumption when we were setting this up, and I know the stats now, was that Jimmy would maybe be a little bit better from the 4th seat.
Yeah.
Because Jimmy, and we've talked about this on the show before, he tends to employ this strategy, which is like, it's natural when one player's ahead for the other 3 players to like team up and try and take down the arch enemy. And Jimmy will often employ a sort of counter strategy to that, which is instead he will try and team up with the arch enemy player to take out the other 2. And even though he knows he's disadvantaged, he's more advantaged than he is against the other 2 combined, right? And so from the 4th seat, that might be a move that you would want to pull, where like you naturally sort of lean towards like team up with 2 and 3 because one's really far ahead. But this strategy of like, hey, maybe I offer something to one, set myself up, and it's like they know they're advantaged against me, and then granted they are, but I still have a shot against them where I have no shot against the other 2 combined.
It's more likely I can be 1 player than 2.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is another sort of, it's not a card thing that you can do, but like that's a way to sort of take your seating position and like, into consideration when you're making deals.
There's a concept in 1v1 that's called fading. It's when you know that you will lose to a certain kind of card or a certain thing that happens, regardless of what you do. You're like, there's no way I beat a pump spell right now, so I have to assume that they don't have the pump spell in order for me to win this game. So I'm going to assume they don't have that, and I'm going to play to win the game assuming they don't have that.
Yeah, a lot of new players will still try and minimize the pump spell there, and play around the pump spell, even though like all the stuff you're going to do that, you'll still lose to the pump spell.
You'll still lose.
Yeah, so then you should just be like, okay, cool. So in the world where they don't have the pump spell,
because that's the only world where I win this game,
then what is the best move for me? And then you make that move.
I think that's a big thing that Commander players can learn from here. Sorry, Reggie, go ahead.
No, I like that point too. The 2 blue situation where you're like, oh, they got the mana open. If they have the counterspell here, I lose. Well, if you don't play the threat, then you're going to lose anyway. And you've lost to the imaginary counterspell if they don't have it. So always go for it.
Yeah, let's talk about deal making, because I think turn order is a really important thing to consider when you're negotiating with people, when you're writing the terms of a deal. And this is something that that is very difficult to talk about strategically. So I think these are really interesting. Let's talk about this first question, which is, would you rather make a deal in a vacuum with a person to your left or your right?
Left.
Easy money.
It's the inverse of what you said earlier about attacking somebody to your right, and there's a couple of turns that can happen that can sort of obfuscate what happened, and they might even forget, and other threats can emerge. This one is like, I make a deal, they have to fulfill their part of the deal. I don't want a bunch of time to have happened and other things where they go, well, I made that deal, but there's a Natalie out now.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I made that deal, but a board wipe happened, and now I don't have to fulfill the terms because the terms have already been naturally fulfilled.
You need the instant satisfaction. So when I pass the turn, I'm going to get the thing that I need. I guess it also depends on who's making the deal. Who needs something in this situation? Am I the one asking them to use their removal spell on something, or are they asking me to use my removal spell before their turn comes up? I think that changes it a bit.
Yeah, it's a who benefits question. Like, if I'm asking, it's like, look, I'm not going to attack you on this turn if you use your removal spell. I want that to be the player on the left. But if the player to your right, if the player to your left wants to make a deal where they're like, I won't attack you if you use your removal spell, you're like, well, a lot can happen in between there before I have to fulfill that promise, which is also good for you. So this can work in the inverse. If you're depending on what action needs to happen first. Okay. The big thing that you mentioned, Josh, that we talked about in politics episodes before is you want the deal to finish, to be done, and you're the next player to be the one that gets to act without ties. So you want them to be like, okay, I've used my removal spell, their turn is over, and now I'm the next player that gets to act, because then you're going first in relationship to the player that you've made this truce with.
So you want to be freed from the fetters of the deal before they are.
Yeah, exactly.
So the situations that we're talking about is like, I'm going to attack, and opponent to my left is like, whoa, I could remove your creature here, but just don't attack me, and I won't remove your creature like now or on my next turn. Those are the best case scenarios. Like, okay, I don't attack you now, and then you won't remove my thing. Okay, classic. And then you go, they don't remove your thing, and on your next turn, well, you didn't say anything about. They've used their removal spell on another threat now. You didn't say anything about this turn.
Well, I would say, though, that those deals are not great because you don't attack. And now you're past your attack phase and they're freed. And now you do still have the rest of your turn, but they're kind of fully freed before you, especially if they're directly to your left there. Yeah. So you were sort of shackled for longer and sort of more precipitously than they were. Yeah. So you might even in that case be like, okay, but in addition, you can't attack me. Now, I've at least flipped that on its head a little bit, where it's like, you don't remove my thing, I don't attack you, and now you still have an obligation, at least. You know, try and get on a little additional something. And that's how I like to think about deals a lot, is like, okay, given that I'm disadvantaged in the setup of this deal, but I still want it to happen, can I get a little more out of them? Just something else to kind of even the scales a little bit.
Sure. Another thing to consider when you're making deals is the location of the problem.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if the threat goes immediately after you, I always find this very difficult when it's you act and then immediately the threat is next, because you can't work with the rest of the table openly before the threat acts.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So like if I'm on my turn and I want to be like, okay, we all know that this guy's the problem. Let's do what we can to solve this problem. I'm the only one that has to act.
Yeah.
Then the threat goes, oh no, they know that I'm the ringleader of this problem.
You're colluding against them. Yeah.
And my two friends that I've just made don't go until after the threat has done all of their like the worst. You get stuck in this weird position where you sort of want to not make any deals until after the threat has acted, and on the end of their turn be like, okay,
so
because now we're gonna get 3 turns if this works.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So you're trying to set up that situation of like, okay, now, 1, 2, 3 punch combo. Maybe we can take down the boss here.
Not to mention, you're the one that goes last in that action.
You're the one unshackled first.
Yes.
That's perfect. Where the threat is to my left, but we're making a deal at the end of their turn. Everyone's like, resources at them, attack them with this, resources at them, attack them with this. Maybe I have to do the least now.
Right.
I just need to attack them with this little thing, destroy that creature, and then
clean it up.
And they're done for.
Yeah, you can often just wait until combat when they swing, be like, okay, now that a lot of the big decisions have been made, let's have a little discussion here about what we can each do. And you can show goodwill, like, that didn't even come at me, but I think this person's the biggest threat. I can get rid of the thing attacking you, and then what do you guys got to knock them down to size? And this is a great setup because you're offering something, right? You're being like, hey, it's not even coming at me, but I'll kill it. And then you're offering something to the team, and they're like, well, that's very generous of them. I want to get onto this team. And they're like, well, I could do this and I could do that. And you're like, great, kill that thing. They do their things. They can't attack you because the attack step already happened. And now you're in the same position that you wanted to be in, where like, now you're tapping. They used all their resources against each other to knock them down to size, and you can really grab the reins of the game.
Yeah. If the threat is to your right, you're in a very different position because the threat has already acted. Now it is your turn, and you have to be like, okay, team.
Yeah.
We have to act all in a row right now. but you're the first one to deliver on that.
You got to be on the front foot. Yeah.
Which is really tough because you can't over deliver on your turn, or you free them first from the deal.
This happens all the time too.
Yeah. And anything could happen in the turn 3 where it's like suddenly this person's the threat and I thought we were a team and everything has changed.
A lot of the times if you're the ringleader, if you go right after the threat and you're the one, all right, team, let's get on them. I'm going to attack them with these things. You lose your creatures, you interact or whatever, and then everyone else gives slightly less.
Yep.
You're the first out now. When the tables have turned, once one player's gone, you're like, well, I guess I got a free attack against you too because you tapped out right after the threat went. Yeah, it's a crazy dynamic.
You also can get stuck in this situation where the player who's going last is like, I'm going to leave him at 2.
Oh.
This happened in the Lorwyn game where we're like, what?
Yeah.
Why?
I have to overcommit to take him out, so
I'm not going to. And you're like, you've gone last. Your turn to act is last. So it's hard to be the ringleader when you're the one that has to deliver all of this stuff first. Mm-hmm. You can't give them your entire turn, but you also need to look like a team player, which is really challenging.
Yeah, I think in that position, you're going to try and give the least. So I've got one removal spell and that's what I can do. Mm-hmm. And I will give that to the team here. But you can't leave yourself in a position where I fire all my bullets at them and then they don't have to use very much.
Yeah.
And I'm just out of ammo.
Yeah.
When it gets back to me, or by the time it gets to the third player on our quote unquote team, they look around and go, well, it's you I'm coming after.
Right.
Because we brought them, the two of you brought them down to size.
Yeah.
Or at least I'm just going to develop my own board freely now because the three of you just all went at each other and now,
Yeah.
That is a really hard balance to weigh for sure.
Is there any merit to being the one in the middle? I think it might be interesting to talk about that. So you don't go right after the threat; you go right after the person who goes right after them.
Oh, I love that position because you're like, oh, I did a little bit of stuff, and there's a whole person that has to go first.
Yeah, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
and sort of the other person has to do something first to demonstrate that they're doing it, and then you can do a little bit, and there's a whole person. I think
unless that person's Jimmy, and then they go, okay, person who's the threat.
I was like, that's perfect. You don't have to be the initiator on either end. You can be like, oh, these guys are teaming up against you. Hey.
In our data, the third place is equivalent, even a little ahead of the first, and it might be because the fact that player number 2 feels like they have to or gets tricked into answering player number 1 enough that surges player number 3 to the lead.
Right.
Yeah.
This is something that we've talked about a little bit throughout the episode, but I want to talk about using your seat position or using this kind of threat assessment to your benefit. And that's just bringing it up, making the table aware of the dynamics in play. And this is something I do.
This is a very Rachel thing. Yeah. Rachel will often be like, well, I went last, so just calling attention to it.
Yep.
Or they do something like, geez, they got that, and they went first. That's the most Rachel thing to say right there.
Yeah.
Which is paint that target really hard.
Yeah, it's not even it's just saying it in a way that's like, well, boy. It's not even, I'm asking something of you. Yeah. It's just painting the shape of the game in a way that advantages you.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's not even a conscious thing I'm doing, but it is something that you can use just to be like, you're just bringing things up.
Yeah.
Yep. You want to make them see.
I'm not telling you what to do.
I'm not telling you what to do.
You want to make them see the table how you see it.
Exactly.
That's going to be a problem for me. Hey, guys, that's going to be a problem for us. Just that tiny little wording pointing it out can be huge.
It's like, well, they have this thing. Well, I really hope they don't have this in their hand.
Otherwise, game over.
Just starting.
And they went first.
Just starting to be like.
So they're going to get to try that before us. Yeah.
Exactly. Especially if you went third or fourth, you can be like, oh, well, we're like you and I down here in the dumps. We're gonna do what we can.
Yep.
Here we go, scrappy little fighters.
That's natural though.
Yeah, but just playing up, it's that lay low thing we were talking about and leaning into it of not trying to appear strong until the last possible moment, and that you can do that by just in painting you paint them with red and you paint yourself with camouflage.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a very subtle thing. It's a lot easier to do if you are actually disadvantaged. It's much more difficult. If you're going first, don't bring it up.
Yeah, you can't say, and I went first.
So I'm pretty good.
Don't do that.
Yeah, if you went first, you're pointing out specific threats or things that happened in the game. And
Right.
if you went last, you can point out the seating order.
Yeah, if you went first, you're like, man, that board wipe wrecked me.
Yeah.
You can bring up other things, but you're not trying to use the seating.
Yeah, they just ramped 2 turns in a row and drew 5 cards. Like, the next turn's going to be brutal.
That's
Yeah.
what I like, is that when I'm early and I'm the first one to deploy threats to the board, I'm the imagination guy. I'm the one that's like, well, what if they have this? Well, they just ramped a bunch of cards. They just drew a bunch of things. That's when you have to start pointing out the what ifs. They have the best commander. They're playing Corvold or something. You don't want to draw attention to what's on your board and where you've gone in the seed order.
I love that. Corvold coming down next turn.
Yeah. And then, we already see they can tack that and that.
Yeah, all right. You're going to draw like,
Yeah,
what,
that is
5
also,
cards?
We're maybe dead, yeah.
Yeah, you just start to create a world, which is spicy. All right, so a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is stuff that you can do in game. We've talked about mulligans, and I think that's the big point that we're making here today. Is you can learn a lot based on where everybody's sitting and just seeing everybody's commanders. There's a lot of strategy that can be gleaned, that can be learned from just looking around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that is a step that a lot of players skip. They wait to get into the game to start doing your threat assessment, and you can really start the moment you roll dice. Yeah, so think about your opening hand, think about your relationship to the other players at the table. Where's the control player is a great
That's a big
question
one.
to ask yourself.
Where's Josh sitting?
Yeah.
Where's Josh sitting? Because if you're going, this is something that we talked about a bit too, is like, where do you want to be sitting if there's a control deck at the table? How do you mulligan when there's a control deck at the table? If you're going right after them, maybe you don't play the like really scary, strong threats if they have mana open. Maybe you play your smaller stuff, or maybe you leave mana open as well.
Yeah, would you rather be on the left or on the right of the control player? Would you
Right.
rather be going immediately after or immediately before?
We disagreed about this a
I
little.
want to be to the right.
I want to be sorry.
I don't want to be the first to act after the
I
control
want
player.
to be the first to act after them.
You do.
Yes. I know that it sucks because you're like, if you play a threat, then you're going to be the first one to like, get the brunt of it. But I've been victim to like the tempo play too many times where they're like, well, no one really played anything like too dangerous.
I have this mana drain, so I'm going to spend it.
And the thing that you're playing isn't even that scary. You literally did this on the
Oh yeah.
on the game nights episode.
Well, I did it. It wasn't to my right. It was
across,
diagonally.
yeah.
Because I was just calculating what's the average mana cost of a spell, and if it's 5 or above, I'm gonna.
I'm gonna count it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just I feel like whenever I'm holding man up, if I'm playing a control deck, I'm never snapping it off immediately because I'm like, well, what if these guys play something scarier than that thing?
Yeah, I think, you got to play your table, and if you know the players and they're good control players, then it might possibly be right that you want to sit to their left because they'll make good decisions. And a lot of times good decisions are wait and see. But I think in general, they're more likely to snap it off on the first thing that they see that is scary, and it just definitely sort of ties your hands. But just knowing a control player is to my right, if they are, let's be a little bit careful about what I deploy here because they are much more likely to just have an answer than just a normal deck. And by looking at commanders, you can often sort of determine who's likely to have more than your average amount of interaction.
Yeah, I think if you're immediately to the left of the control player, you want to deploy cheap spells. You feel a little bit more hamstrung because you're playing around the counter spells that they have. And if you're the player to the right, you could catch some strays, but there are also more situations where you're like, they have tapped out because they've spent their resources by now. Or what are the odds that they have 2 counter spells?
Yeah. I like the mana cost thing, and it might also determine mulligan a little bit, where if your plan is ramp, deploy this big thing, but you've looked around at the commanders, you're sitting to the left of a control player. I don't like that opening hand plan. I want little stuff, because one of the ways you kind of beat a control player or get an advantage on them is they can't stop everything. They can stop. They're way better at stopping singular big things than a lot of sort of smaller things.
Right.
So if you've got a bunch of 2s and 3s, then you get to the point where it's yep, they can destroy or remove a thing, but I got one thing to stick still. And that's a a lot better for you. So
Yeah.
I think if you're playing a deck that's naturally sort of inclined towards like singular big things, then you got to be real careful if the control player is directly to your right.
Yeah, if you got an expensive commander or something, you got to find your windows very carefully.
We talked about Goad, how it affects the map, but I also wanted to talk about group hug because I think group hug is a major factor when it hits the table.
This is the opposite.
If you are the player immediately after the group hug player, you are extremely advantaged. And you should know that. If you're playing group hug, you're playing against group hug, you should know that the player that goes immediately after is the first one to benefit from mana doublers, is the first one to benefit from extra card draw. It's the first one.
Ramp you give.
You are effectively now in first, because what the group hug player is doing is enhancing the amount of resources, and they're going to give more resources to the players after them than the players before them.
Yeah.
So if you're playing group hug, you should know that I am most afraid of the player who goes right after me, and I'm the least afraid of the player who goes right before me.
Yeah.
Most of the group hug effects that you play in a group hug deck are almost always you don't get the advantage right away. You have to pass the turn to the player, and then the machine starts rolling. Howling Mine, Rites of Flourishing, those sorts of effects. So I definitely want to be sitting to the left.
They've designed more and more where it's like you get an advantage now and they get it now, but a lot of times like it's card draw and like they didn't know they were going to get it necessarily, and they tapped out. They deployed some things, so it's not like they're holding up mana at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but also they get that card draw without spending resources. You spent cards to get them the thing. I think about this a lot because I have a Miss Bumbleflower deck, and I almost always give the first card draw to the player to the right, and then I'll sort of go in a clockwise fashion because just to make it look equitable, just to play the politics in that way. But in general, if you're the player to the left of the group hug player, they're not even aware of this a lot of the times, this dynamic. And so what you want to do is be very nice to them, do nice things to them, keep them on your good side because they are helping you win the game. So what you don't want is the group hug player to become aware of the fact that you're the biggest threat to them at this table. Yeah.
Something to keep in mind while you're playing group hug. The other one that is worth keeping an eye on is aggro decks, like especially Voltron and Infect. So aggro decks that can only affect one player at a time. If you are to the left, and if you're going after them in seed order, you are extremely disadvantaged because, again, you were the last to deploy blockers. You were the last to be able to defend yourself against what they're doing, and they're going to try and take one player out at a time and generally tend to take out the player that is the most behind.
Yeah.
That is the right strategy if you're playing Voltron, is to take out weak players as fast as possible, and that is the players who went after you in turn order.
Yeah, we learned this early on because we played with Craig, who's famously, Mr. Infect. So there was a lot of like early kills, and what we learned was like Infect is not that scary as a game-winning strategy. It's scary to each individual player though, because you could get knocked out super early. Craig didn't win very many games, but he always took somebody out just about. And so this turned into a game where in our deck building you had to put a lot more just 2-drops and lower drops in your deck, and you would prioritize things differently. Like in normal games of Commander, turn 2 is the ramp turn, and turn 3 is the deployment of something else turn. And we would often, have the 2-mana rock and deploy the 2-drop, because if Craig hits somebody else first, you are safe for the next couple of combat steps because he has to hit the same person again a couple of times. And it does, if he spreads it around, if he goes hit Reggie, then hit Rachel, then hit Josh, there's no way he can win the game. So all you had to do was fade the first attack, and then you were safe for a couple more. And so you also have to think about mulligans and what hands you're keeping. Can I get something down that will just present a blocker? And I'll chump block, I don't care. But like all I'm trying to do is make it so that your aggro deck is not like doesn't bite and hold on me.
It's the same thing with Voltron. Where it's like the first person they put commander damage on, that's who they're going to be attacking for the next few turns.
I mean, Infect decks are Voltron decks.
And when you sit down at the table, you should look at the geography of the table and be like, okay, regardless of what happens in this game, it is very likely I'm the easiest person to target. It's like you don't have to run faster than the bear, you have to run faster than your friend. That is like that is commander rules, especially when there's a bear at the table like Voltron or Infect.
And in those cases, I might go against some of the things we said earlier, where it's like, I would hold up my interaction and actually use it, because if I can just turn that attack aside the first time, maybe it goes someplace else the second time, or I have time to get something else down. So those are cases where like against normal decks, a single individual attack doesn't mean that much, but it means a lot from a Voltron deck and Impact deck.
Yeah, and the politics in terms of interaction can matter a lot more against Voltron decks too. This is like a cheeky little thing that you can do where you say you might want to use your interaction sooner. Sometimes you can just show it to them. Like Voltron decks know that they're vulnerable. Impact decks know that they're vulnerable to like instant speed interaction. So it's like, dude, I got the swords. You send the commander at me, I'm using it right now. That can be all it takes to send it elsewhere.
Yeah, or they go to put the boots on.
And you're like, all right.
You're like,
Do I have to kill that? Is that coming at me?
Because I will. Yeah.
It's really, really important to do those things when you're right after them.
Yeah.
So let's talk. We've talked about a lot of ways that the geography affects the table. Let's talk a little bit more about what we do. So what game actions should you make? What things should you keep in mind if you're going first? Like, what should you be thinking?
Right, we've been talking mostly about how to like reverse the disadvantage of going last, but like how do you capitalize on the advantage of going first?
You step on the gas. You know that you have the advantage, so you hold on to it and you run as fast as you can. Yeah,
shorter games are better for you. We've already seen that in the percentages with cEDH. So you're interested in the game going as short as possible because that gives them less time to catch up to you.
Yep.
That lets fewer things happen that get rid of your advantage. So maybe you don't cast the board wipe. Maybe you're not trying to like keep players alive and try and like, you're just like, no, if a player dies, that's better for me because that means the game is winding down.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually. Like you probably don't want to be saving other players because the amount of advantage you have diminishes the longer the game goes on.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be interacting super early. You want to be deploying threats and just like doing what you can to create exponential advantage with the small starting advantage you have going first. Or I say small, but kind of huge.
And to press that, I think you want to be on the front foot. You want to be attacking. You want to be doing damage. You were advantaged sort of in all ways. So you want to move the game momentum as fast as you can get it.
Yeah, you want to press your advantage. And I would say you probably want to like team up with one other player, and preferably I think it's player number 2 because your combined advantage versus 3 and 4 is pretty huge and you're still advantage versus player number 2.
Right.
So once it gets down to 1v1, you also are ahead just naturally. Obviously there's a million other factors. It's not like player 1 wins, 70% of all games. They're getting like a 4 or 5% win equity at the end of the day. But still, I think the all things being equal, phrase comes into play here. But I would say like that's what you want to do is team up with another player against the sort of last couple of place turns because that'll speed up the game in your favor.
You know what's interesting? We have your statistics on going first.
We sure do.
Don't we, Rachel?
We sure do. I'm going to stop giving advice.
For the rest of the podcast, actually, I have nothing to say.
So we've been gathering data for a future episode, and we have individual data between Josh, Jimmy, and I about our win percentages depending on what seat position we're in. And the one that stood out to me the most is that I'm really bad at going first. I have an 18.18 win percentage.
Insane.
Wow.
So I have a 7% win differential from average, but it is a minus 9.73% from my win percentage when I'm in first. I drop 10% likelihood.
And that's the biggest of any of the seating positions.
Crazy.
Right? So Rachel's actually, for her, she's the worst
at going first
of all of the seating positions. Like if we could ask you a question at the start of the game, which turn do you want to go on? If you picked one, it'd be your worst. It'd be the last one you should pick, which is insane.
Which is crazy.
But it makes a ton of sense if you play with Rachel. I'm sure you've watched her play on the show. She's very much, we call her the silent assassin because she's very much a like keep head down, lay low in the grass, thwart aggression, use her verbal tricks, her Jedi mind tricks.
My wiles.
Yeah. To seem like she's not a threat and don't worry about her and point everybody at everyone else is very effective. And that is harder to do from the first seat. A lot harder to do. You're just the first to do stuff. You're naturally, other people are calling attention to it. Just out of pure accidents, you will probably appear to be a little bit of ahead because you're going to do stuff before everybody else.
Right.
For most players, that's an advantage. But for Rachel, it actually goes against everything else.
It's like my entire entire strategy, my
Down the
whole
drain.
style
Yeah.
is to just be like it's difficult to recognize when my decks are ahead because they tend to be super resilient. They tend to be like a lot of small things combining. So I don't do a good job of pressing the advantage of being ahead because I don't like being ahead.
Yep.
You want to be underestimated.
And it's consistent with my seat 2 percentage, which is 22.22 win percentage. So this is a minus 5.68, slightly less than my modifier for first seat, but it shows that like when I am naturally advantaged by the game, I am less comfortable.
I'm glad my stats aren't on this.
Yeah, we don't have the
Rachel's
numbers.
are so weird.
Mine
though,
are
'cause-
wild.
Yeah, it almost is exactly inverse of the norm. Almost. It's not quite in a very big way.
Yeah, let's talk about going last because I think this will sort of paint the whole picture for me. My seat 3 win percentage, which might be the reason that the channel's seat 3 win percentage is a little skewed. I have a 45.45% win percentage in seat 3.
Crazy.
I win half the games on the channel that I'm in seat 3. So my win percentage goes up.
So
45% is an insane amount.
17. It's crazy.
So if you're sitting at a table with Rachel and she's going third, it's a coin toss.
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
She's 50-50.
Like,
Oh,
wow.
no, it's 45. It's not quite 50-50, but yeah, insane.
It's nuts.
It is the perfect Rachel C when you think
Yes.
about it. I mean, I would not have guessed these percentages.
No,
Solid.
when we did the math, I was like, I have erred. Something has gone wrong.
Yeah, but it's the perfect seat because it plays exactly like fourth seat's a little too much of a disadvantage
Yes.
to actually overcome, but third's perfect because first and second can duel it out, and then third can come in.
Yeah.
And
And I'm really good at making seats 1 and 2 duel it out.
Yeah.
And I think like this is obviously something for me to process, but this is something that I think people can benefit from because like my style, if you watch me play, is how you should play if you're in seat 3 and 4. You should be quiet. You should be slowly building resources. You should be able to like manipulate the players that are advantaged in the game to use those tools against each other. And that works really, really well, especially in C3 when you're still slightly advantaged against the 4th player.
Yeah.
Who is a lot harder to like do anything with because they're obviously digging themselves out of a hole.
well, your seat 4 percentage is actually better than the other two.
It is.
It's just not as good as your seat
It's
3.
it's not good as seat 3, but my seat 4 win percentage is 25%, which is a little bit less than my average win percentage.
But your average win percentage is so skewed
Is
by
like
that
27.
C3 that,
It's bonkers. So I mean that's a lot to learn about like what to do if you're going last, and it's a lot for me to learn about how I shift my play style when I'm naturally advantaged by the game.
Yeah, I think when you're in 1 and 2, you need to play less like you usually play.
Yeah.
Just lean into advantage a little bit more. Yeah.
And
I don't know if you can even do it.
I don't know what that looks like. I feel like I deck build to be behind. Like I play with fogs and tricks and ways to get it to jump into the lead is how I naturally build, which is great sitting in seats 3 and 4, but is a challenge when you're ahead because you're not going to cast a fog if you're in seat 1.
Right. Yeah.
So it's something for me to keep in mind overall, which I think is really interesting. But if you're going last and you're trying to improve yours, we've talked about a lot of these. You're mulliganing ways to efficiently slow your opponents down or ways to speed yourself up. So this is the ramp. This is ways to develop your board that doesn't put you in the lead too early. You're looking for efficient board wipes, and you're looking for just generally a more defensive hand. You're developing your resources, you're defending yourself against aggression, fogs are good, that kind of thing.
Yeah, super proactive early stuff is not going to be that great for you.
Yeah.
No reg events.
Yeah, wall decks are really good at this. It's just something I just thought of, where it's like when you're going 3rd and 4th, if you're playing like a defender deck or something, well, you don't really look threatening. You got a bunch of 0-4s and 0-5s or something like that. So you're like, whatever. I can't really attack you. You're like silent in the corner, and then out of nowhere, you drop some random effect that's like, they all attack with their toughness now. Like, whoa, what just happened?
Sure, yeah.
It could be huge swings like that.
Those big like overrun effects, those kind of things that can jump you into first place are going to be even more important when you're in seat 4. We talked a little bit about building for turn order. I wanted to discuss this a little bit.
Wait, we're not going to talk about Jimmy's?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Because I had posited the theory that Jimmy would be... Mine is boring. Mine is pretty much like how it's supposed to look.
Yeah, you are good at like pushing your advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to being the target by default at all times. So like I'm better at going first because at least if I'm targeted, I would rather be advantaged.
Yeah.
But Jimmy's, I had posited the theory that he would be better at going last, and it does play out as far as like for Jimmy's win percentage. He is better at being in seat 4.
He is the least affected by going last of anybody. Like even I drop 3% if I'm going last. Jimmy has a 0.34% modifier when he's going last, which says that like, if I go last, it's the same as if I'm in seat 3 or 2. And I think you're right. I think it's because he's willing to take risks. He's willing to
he's by far the riskiest player of us. Of like whatever, I'm just not going to try and stop you. I'm just going to do a thing. Like he's good at leaning into that.
And playing for the win, I think is what Jimmy's really, really strong at, is like making those deals with the player who's in the lead. Is like, look, I'm not going to win if I just like do what everybody else is doing. I need to do something crazy. I need to do something dramatic. And if that means teaming up with a player that I might not be able to beat, at least it's teaming up with one against.
Give me a shot.
Yeah, it gives me a chance here.
There's some huge merit behind that. I mean, his win percentage looks like it's like 20% average with not a lot of weight depending on where it sits. And it's like everything that we talked about, where it's like, well, if you lean into whatever your strengths are, whatever your deck does, where you sit, you just think about it a little bit in terms of the table dynamic and just go for what you can where you're at.
So Jimmy's win percentage modifier when he goes first is 5.06%. So he is advantaged by going first. And that 5% is like on pace. When he's going second, he is a minus 5.48%. Wow. So when he's going second, this is his worst seat for him. So he is like a 15% win percentage from seat 2. And then seats 3 and 4 are basically negligible in terms of how they affect him. Negative 0.18%, and then 4th seat is 0.34%. So he's not affected by going 3rd and 4th, which is good. That means that like he can overcome the disadvantage of being in those last seats, and he's good at using the 1st seat advantage.
I think when you consider though that for most players that 4th seat goes down more, the fact that his is actually that's his second highest win percentage. Like he actually managed to eke out more wins from the 4th seat than most players do. But where most players should have a minus 5%, yours is minus 4.06. That's about what we would expect from a player who's the difference between going 1st and 4th. And so if you think about it that way, then Jimmy's like modifier looks a little bit more like a 5% positive because he's overcoming that disadvantage. Yeah, it's very interesting when you think about styles and how that affects things. Reggie, we don't have stats on you.
We don't.
No. If I had to guess,
if you had to guess, like what part of this you're good at, or your play style sort of naturally, what your weaknesses are, or whatever.
So I would say that deck building wise, I always build way more ramp than I need, which feels like it advantages 3rd and 4th. The players that want to they know that they're behind already, so they need to catch up with mana, with card advantage, those sorts of things. And I love big explosive decks. Omniscience is my favorite card in the game, which is like if you're far behind and then out of nowhere you're like show and tell Omniscience. Whoa! I feel like I might be more advantaged going 4th on average. I know I suck at going first. I'm not aggro. I'm not really good at attacking. Like most of the time, I'm like, let me just leave back all my.
Well, it's funny because I'm not an aggro player, but I definitely like. Going first is what I think is my top.
Actually, 3rd is your top as well.
Oh, okay.
You have a plus 2.84% in 3rd and plus 1.79% in going first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would guess it's because when you go first, everybody's like, Josh is first, kill him.
Get him.
I mean, they do that wherever
in every seat, but like especially when you're going first.
Yeah. I'd be really curious. I mean, over time, I'm definitely gonna look into that and see how those sorts of things affect my win percentage in each seat. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it's good to sort of know that about yourself, so that like especially with Rachel, where it's so pronounced. Like I think it probably will alter your play.
Yes.
You'll just know to act a little bit differently when you're in those first 2 seats, which is going to make Rachel even more formidable, which is my favorite thing.
Wow.
Yes!
Imagine.
My first seat weakness. I will overcome that.
You're dominant in everything.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if that bleeds over and your third seat dominance drops.
Drops?
At all.
I don't know.
Or if you
Goes
can
over
maintain
to the
both,
other
it's
one.
like, geez.
Yeah, unstoppable.
5% across the board.
So there are cards that manipulate turn order in strange ways, and I do want to take a second to at least mention them.
Yawn engine.
Yeah, there are really strange cards that like literally manipulate turn order, like Eon Engine. So this is a 5-mana artifact that enters tapped, and you can tap and exile it to reverse the game's turn order.
I play this card.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Most of the time, I don't play it fairly, but when I first found it, I was like, "Well, this is so weird. I gotta see what this does." And genuinely, it flips the table on its head, like quite literally.
Yeah.
In that, all of a sudden, if you're, let's say, I play the Eon Engine and I'm going fourth, and I reverse the turn order, it takes a whole turn to do it. But all of a sudden, if you're the player going first, you're like, "Well, crap." Like everyone else now gets an extra turn before it comes back to me. So it like creates this weird dynamic where it literally all of a sudden everyone that was advantaged in a strange way, it starts going backwards.
Right.
Yeah, well, it really helps the player to your right. Who's
Yeah.
basically
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
two turns in a row, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get 2 turns in a row. You do it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you would pass the turn and then you would go reverse the game's turn order
Yeah.
and then send it back to you.
Yeah. So you get. You go, they go, you go, and then next.
Yeah,
So,
it screws the diagonal player by
Yeah.
quite a bit. Yeah.
So this card, Eon Engine, is good when you're in seat 4, and it's quite bad when you're in C1. Is that true?
If you're in seat 1 and
pass.
you play Eon Engine, you pass. It takes 1 full turn to untap, and then you pass the second player, reverse.
No, it doesn't affect you because you're the one
Yeah.
activating it. So Eon Engine effectively puts you in seat 1,
Yeah.
is what it does. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I think if it costs no resources,
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 mana in a
that's
card.
the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is just like the amount of resources you have to expend.
Yeah.
Because I think otherwise the effect would be fine, but it's not. Yeah, you just don't gain enough, I don't think.
You spend a whole
most of the
card,
time.
and it doesn't do anything the turn that you play.
Yeah.
I think the
So-
problem is how expensive it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think how slow. If this was 2
On a
mana,
land.
if this was 1 mana, it might be great.
If it was 1 mana, it'd be insane, but also
Yeah.
then everyone would play it and it would be really annoying.
It'd be really annoying. But it's one of those things where you're like, we know the win percentage difference between seat 1 and seat 4.
Yeah.
This card would be bonkers if you can get it down early.
Yeah.
But it's just too expensive
It's too
to do that.
slow. It's too expensive and too slow.
I mean, it's kind of neat. I love the idea that Eon Engine could be good almost.
I've played it.
I mean, I think when you get down to it, most cards have a mana point where they would be really good.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
that's
most.
true.
Yeah.
I've played it in decks where you can abuse it. Don't do this to your friends, by the way. But if you have a
you
way
can
to
lock
like
somebody
clone
out.
Eon Engine, you can lock out the player that's like directly diagonal from you, which that doesn't really do much to the turn order dynamic. It's just kind of funny and mean.
Locks one player out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one player you don't have to worry
Solves
about.
the player. So how does this, how do cards like Pramicon that can direct where you're attacking, are those affected by turn order? Do those help overcome a disadvantage?
Yeah, this is interesting.
If you know where the aggression is going, which usually it's towards the players who went later, and someone plays a Pramicon, and then they go, well, you can only attack players to the left, or sorry, to the.
If you can only attack a player who went before you or the player who went after you is like the directions.
Right. So if you say right, then all of a sudden, the person that went later in the turn order is like, well, yay. Now the whole, like, everyone sending their creatures at me doesn't really work anymore.
Yeah, but you're being attacked either by the player who went first, who has the most resources, hypothetically, or the player who went third, both of which are ahead of you in turn order, so it doesn't really change things.
Yeah, but being fourth, you're kind of, like we said, in many cases the default easy target.
Right,
So
yeah.
maybe just narrowing it down to one player,
One
and
person.
especially
Yeah.
not the first player,
Yeah.
might be some amount of advantage.
What I kind of like about it is it forces the second player to attack the first player, where it's like, okay, you're the one with the most resources to deal with them,
Yeah.
and you're going to be a problem for them. And it forces the first player to deal with the second player because they're the one attacking them. So in a way, it does feel like something that can actually manipulate turn order in an effective way.
Yeah. Problem with Pramicons is 3 colors.
And
So
you don't
even-
know when you
Well,
play
yeah,
it,
there's Mystic
what-
Barrier is white.
You don't know when you play it what turn you're going to be on.
If you're,
Yeah.
if
Is
you're
it good
in-
if you're in turn C1?
then you make it so the player who's last is attacking you and you're attacking downwind. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
That's great.
Well, never mind. I don't like it that much
So,
anymore.
I mean, it's good in both seats,
Yeah.
and it makes you in more control of the power dynamic.
Yeah, it's better if you're going first though, because if it's everyone's even and then you play Pramicon, no one is able to like retaliate against the advantage that you have
It's
now.
harder for them to team up on you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
only the
and you're the most likely one to get teamed up on.
exactly
Right. This
Yeah.
is so funny. I've always wanted to build a Pramicon deck, and I think it's exactly because it makes the first 2 players fight,
Yeah.
which is my entire.
Send them at 'em.
Interesting. Well, let's move on to this next category of cards that help you build for turn order, and it's Flash. We talk about the power of instant speed all the time. Being able to decide when to deploy things means you can be in whatever seat position you want.
Yeah, that's why for years I loved Vidalcan Orrery. It's a little too, you can't play a 4-mana do nothing anymore, so it's harder to play. I love High Fate Trickster because you can kind of move your seat order because you can move when you're doing stuff. You don't get the land drop and the draw, but still it's a big advantage to just be able to be like, I'm not going to take any actions now. I'll choose when I take the actions.
I like the way Titled Barracuda throws everything into chaos.
Oh, I love a Tidal Barracuda.
Everyone takes a turn whenever they. whenever they
I don't like it at all. I want to be the one doing that.
Yeah.
Well, it also, I think it also locks everyone out of your
Yeah,
turn too.
yeah.
It locks them out of your turn. So it's any player may cast spells as though they had Flash, and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm
I
already
love that.
casting things
Yeah.
at Flash. I don't need that card to help me.
I love Tidal
Why give it to
Barracuda.
everybody else?
Because I also play against enough people that are like, I don't want to do that. So they just cast their stuff on their
I
turn.
don't want to think
I don't
that
wanna
hard.
think-
That's
Yeah,
a lot. And if it's like a crazy stack battle, I often find myself a little advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's in the deck for a reason. But I like Tidal Barracuda in Voltron decks where you have to defend your turn really specifically, where you're like, I don't want anybody messing with what I'm doing right now because it's
And you don't want to
risky.
project what you're doing.
Yes.
So you give them the least possible window to react to stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the instant speed vein, instant speed board wipes fix the entire problem with board wipes too. Where
Yeah.
you can board wipe whenever you feel like it's most effective, which is probably the end step before your turn.
Yeah.
And then you're always the first to rebuild in
Yeah,
those situations.
that was a takeaway I had from this whole discussion. That building the outline and thinking about this episode was like we probably should be playing more instant speed board wipes. I think I've in recent years wanted to put more board wipes in my deck, and I've kind of been looking for one-sided board wipes, but there's not that many of them, and then I sort of default to like your traditional board wipes. But I probably should put things like Route and other things back on my radar.
Like Final Showdown was a
Yeah,
card we were very high on, but I haven't put into a ton of decks because I've just like, it's hard to make
It's
changes.
just like, when you're putting board wipes, you're like, I need 4 board wipes. And then
There they
go to
are.
the ones that pop into your head. And
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily, so I should re-examine, and like Evacuation's another good one. Because that ability to just be like, end step before my turn, board wipe, untap, redeploy first, put myself into first in turn
first
order.
seat, yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Zimone's hypothesis because it can be, this is kind of magical Christmas land, but it can be one-sided. You
Yeah.
can build around it a little bit, and it has the instant speed.
This
factor
is
to it.
3 blue for an instant. You may put a +1/+1 counter on a creature, then choose odd or even. Return each creature with the power of the chosen quality to its owner's hand. So you can fix one of your creatures and bounce everything else, make it sort of beneficial to you and affect the most things. And it's an instant, so you can do it on end step and redeploy those cards right away.
Yeah.
But yeah, this lets you shift turn order in a way that says like, okay, now I'm going first. Now I'm building first. My creature's on the board first. It makes a big difference. I mean, I've been a big fan of Perplexing Test for a long time. This is an instant that bounce either tokens or non-tokens. Usually it goes in token decks because you can make it one-sided-ish.
Yep.
But it's possible that this is just a second copy of Evacuation, and is that good? And obviously, the Cyclonic Rift is powerful because of its ability to be both fully one-sided and fully instant speed.
Yeah.
I think Cyclonic Rift is
Shouldn't
an
put those two
exception.
things on the same thing.
No.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that makes you look at stuff like Perplexing Test that can be almost one-sided
Yeah.
and instant speed and be like, this is a lot better than you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get the same kind of effect out of the board wipes that let you pick your best thing.
Yeah, that was something we were talking about is like these one-sided board wipes for sure, but maybe stuff like Tragic Arrogance or the Eternal Wanderer that says, I pick the things that stay on the battlefield are good enough because you cast them at sorcery speed, but you get to keep your best things and they keep their worst.
Yeah.
So it means that you've effectively rebuilt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Tragic Arrogance is probably like underrated.
Yeah.
There are situations where like, they only have their commander and that sucks. I have to let them keep that. But most of the time you can keep your best thing versus their worst things is a pretty big step in the right direction for you.
One I wanted to shout out that's not very good, but I think it's funny is Fortunate Few, which lets everyone chooses a non-land permanent they don't control and destroy the rest.
Yeah.
So most of the time it'll play out where everyone picks their worst thing. Where everyone's
You
like,
get to keep a treasure.
you get to keep that treasure there. Or, well, you wipe my board, I'm going to pick your worst thing. And then I just like the conversation that it creates.
All right, those are big ways to build around, to help you be more flexible when you're deck building. But honestly, there aren't a lot of cards that effectively do this in the way that we're talking about. We mentioned Dockside. We're going to talk a little bit more in just a moment about some things that we could do or some things that Wizards could design that we think plays with this idea of seed order a little bit better. But we're going to get to that in just a moment. If you want to pick up any of the cards that we talked about in this episode, maybe you're like, I need some routes. Then you can support the show by going to cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has so many cards all under one roof. So if you're buying a lot of cards at once, if you're building a deck, or if you're like me and we're just past a set and you're like, all right, time to buy all my cards from Marvel Superheroes, you can go to one place, order them all in one package at one time. You pay shipping once, they show up, and you get to have a big deck building party once those cards arrive on your doorstep. They package it well, they ship it on time, they're the best. cardkingdom.com/command.
And of course, once you get those cards, you want them to remain in mint condition and protected. Ultra Pro is the game accessories brand we trust our own collections to here at the Command Zone. If you go to ultrapro.com/command, you can find all of their cool products like deck boxes, playmats, dice, wall scrolls, binders, sleeves. We've been talking about the sleeves a lot. And if you ever go to a live Magic event, I highly recommend the Mana 8 line because they are perfect for having people sign things because they got all that nice negative space in the white. It's very easy. And I just want to make sure that when I sign it, it looks good for you. And the Mana 8 line makes it super, super easy. So again, ultrapro.com/command is the place to find all of those products.
All right, let's talk about this. How can Wizards design for the fourth player disadvantage? We've talked a little bit about the theory of Dockside where it's like it gets better the more your opponents have already done.
Yeah.
And that sort of catch up idea of that white cards have had, like if you have more things, I get to at least match you.
Yeah.
Is a good theory, I think.
Yeah. The tough part about this is how do you design those cards so that they don't also advantage the early turns nearly just as much.
Yeah, that is certainly a challenge. I mean, I think we've seen this creep into design a little bit. The multiplayer lands, these are the turbulent cycle is a good example, but again, a very small type of advantage. I think Culling Ritual is a decent example of a card that's very, very good in the 4th seat and is fine from the 1st seat, but it destroys all little things and gives you mana equal to that. So it's like, okay, all of this stuff you've deployed already, it's gone, and I'm going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Mana Geyser gets better the later in turn order you are, but it's also quite powerful.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, rituals, I think rituals in general are good or better for a later turn player.
Yeah.
Still good for an early turn player though too.
Yeah, you don't want the card to be unplayable.
Mana Geyser's tough because I feel like it's really strong going early.
Yeah.
A lot of the time going late, sometimes I'll have mana open for things.
Yeah, the difference between getting 21 mana and getting 18 mana, not that big of a deal. Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is like you have to make these cards good enough to put in any deck because we don't know when we sit down to play whether we're going to be going first, second, third, or fourth. And therefore it's hard to design them so that it advantages the fourth player enough.
Yeah.
Where it's not just too powerful overall. And it's, yep, advantages the fourth player by 5%, but that's still good enough for the first turn player to want to put it in their deck, in which case the 5% is just not enough of an advantage that you're getting.
And then give the fourth player like a significant amount of advantage for playing the card going forward.
It's a really hard design challenge.
Yeah. I want to talk about Claim Jumper because I think this card is interesting. It's 2 and a white for a creature, Rabbit Mercenary. It says, when this creature enters, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a Plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then, if an opponent controls more lands than you, repeat this process once. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So this says if you're 2 lands behind somebody, you can get 2 lands. I was really excited about this card when it came out, and I put it into decks, and I was like, this is going to be great. No. I've only ever had this card get me 1 land, but I think there's a couple of small tweaks you could make to Claim Jumper to make it a better card, and that is if it checks when it enters. If Claim Jumper enters and it says, for each opponent that has more lands than you, you get a land.
Sure.
And that's a much more powerful card, of course. But in 4th seat, there's 3 people who have played their lands before you. You can play that, get 3 lands.
But you're in 4th seat.
But you're in 4th seat.
And in 3rd seat, you get 2 lands.
You get 2 lands. So this scales really naturally with the way that the game works. And it doesn't put you in this weird position where it's like, I don't know, why would I play an overcosted Knight of the White Orchid when it only ever gets me 1 land, as opposed to this thing, which could be like, okay, sometimes it'll get me 1 land, but sometimes it'll get me 3.
Yeah.
And that is a big way to, jump into the lead in a way that feels palatable and doesn't feel super like pushed.
Yeah, it's great when you get 3, but like that's not going to happen all the time.
It's going to happen 25% of the time.
Yeah, it could be a little more because you could have a landfall deck in seat 4 and you're in seat 3 or whatever. But
The other option that I was thinking about is when it enters, for each opponent that has more lands than you, they sacrifice 1 land. And that's a great way to slow them down a little bit. So if you're in the 4th position, everybody ahead of you has already hit their land drop. They sack the land, you get to play a land. And now you're ahead on lands from everybody else. And that feels like
they sack and you get 1? Oh, you get 1 and then they sack.
You don't get 1.
Okay.
So this enters, everyone who has more lands than you sacks 1 land. But now you play your land for turn and you're up a land from everybody who's already just played their land drop. And this isn't like a land destruction thing. If you blink it, it isn't crazy because it's gated by the number of lands you have.
Right, because if you blink it, you've got the same amount as them or more.
Right. It doesn't change anything anymore. So I think adjusting that in a slight way where it scales for the number of players when it enters and not the number of lands that one player has.
Yeah.
Because that is not that valuable.
I like that design space. One of the things that we talked about was that a lot of the reason for the gap in casual Commander is that certain colors like white and red are not allowed to do the things that they're really good at, like land destruction, where it's like, oh, it's kind of frowned upon. But in a lot of situations, if you like are going into turn 4 and you go Armageddon, play a land, then now you have effectively like switch the turn order dynamic. You're going first now, but no one has any lands, which is not great.
Well, and they've deployed their board before you.
Yeah, it doesn't destroy their board, so it probably wouldn't be that great for you.
Another card we were talking about is close, and you can tell they're thinking about this, is Planetary Annihilation. And I want to talk about this. It's 3 red for a sorcery. Each player chooses 6 lands they control, then sacrifices the rest. Planetary Annihilation deals 6 damage to each creature. So this says everybody comes down to 6 lands, and it wipes the board. So it can sort of effectively reset it. So you play this before playing your land drop, then you play your land drop, and you're ahead. But the problem with this is it doesn't do that turn shift until turn 6 is when you can start getting that advantage. Not even. It has to be turn 7 because you play it, everybody sacks down to 6 lands, then you play your land and you're ahead.
Right.
And you're like, at this point, this is a bad board wipe. I need something that's going to win me the game.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Planetary...
the board wipe pushes rampant growth.
And you're like, it's too late for those kind of like little incremental advantages that help advantage the player who is in last place. So I wonder if Planetary Annihilation was shifted just a little bit down, if it would be a better card.
So
isn't it Wildfire? Don't we have Wildfire? Isn't it 4 and 4?
Yeah, but it's 6 mana for Wildfire.
And so if Planetary Annihilation was 2 red,
Yeah, so it's 4 mana.
and dealt 5 damage.
Even if 4 damage. Let's say it's 4 mana,
damage.
4 damage, it sacks down to 5 lands. Now you're in this spot where like a turn earlier, you can get a little bit more advantage out of it. The board wipe is a little bit better.
Yeah, the problem with these cards is people won't play them because
They don't like them.
it can get rid of too many lands. Like if they've got 10 and they go down to 5, like
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Sure.
I don't mind your claim jumper thing where everybody just sacks 1 because maximum it gets rid of 1.
Right, yeah.
But I just don't think you're going to get the player base to buy into any
sack
kind of
down.
effect that can take out like 10
yeah.
plus lands
That's
total
fair.
in a single effect. I think that's just like
Yeah.
no matter how like fair it makes the game, people are just not signing up to go backwards in games in that
Yeah.
direction. Yeah, singular lands like everybody loses 1. That's that. I think that's okay. Yeah.
Is there a realm where an Eon Engine type card feels playable and isn't everywhere? Is it 3 mana where it flips the turn order and comes in tapped?
I think the main reason that no one plays Eon Engine is 1, yes, the mana cost is too expensive. Also, it's just kind of boring. Like in terms of like, well, what does it actually do? Yeah, it switches the table dynamic, but it's only good. We talked a little bit like 1/4 of the time. It's pretty good.
It's a little too subtle in its advantages, probably.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Which just means the way to make it good is to make it cost almost no resources.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it becomes too good, whereas like everyone just kind of runs it. And I
Yeah.
don't know that there's a spot you can find where it's like sometimes, because it's
Yeah.
also like
If it was on a land,
what specific kind of deck really wants it besides like artifact recursion decks?
it also exiles itself.
Yeah.
Is the current.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So like
gotta be earthbending or something. Yeah.
well,
But
you
yeah.
can tell I've seen people play this like 2 times back when it
Yeah,
first
yeah.
got released, and then everyone was like, it doesn't do enough. It costs
Yep.
too much mana, and then I never saw it again.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know that reversing the turn order is really gonna be the solve to this. It doesn't feel like it is. It's also just kind of abusable, and it's another like feel bad thing.
Yeah.
Where like it really just tends to really disadvantage one person rather than to really advantage the person that played it.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
All it does is flip the advantage rather than even the advantage,
Yeah.
which is the issue. Yeah, I mean, looking at Dockside as a model, looking at cards that care about what your opponents have already done is like does naturally scale if they have more, if they've done this. Those are cards that do feel like they naturally advantage the player who go after more players.
We want to flip the advantage, though, don't we?
I mean, it like going from here to here doesn't change the fact that being in 4th seat sucks. It just makes it suck for a different person.
oh, so
Is what I mean.
Gotcha. So what we want is to get the percentages so that everyone is just 25%.
Yes.
And it comes more down to
Yes.
just
You'd
plain
rather
skill,
go
yeah.
here.
You want to erase the seeding position part of the advantage.
Right.
You know, you want deck building and strategy to still matter, but like, you're trying to figure out a way that cards can exist, because I mean that's really the only way to affect. I guess there's rules, and people talk about mulligan rule changes and things like that as a way to sort of try and balance turn order as well.
Where like,
But like,
no one draws except for the 4th player, or first person doesn't draw or something. Yeah.
yeah.
Something I was thinking of was like a sleep effect. Tap all things your opponents control, they don't untap. It's all not all lands. Tap all non-land permanents your opponents control, they don't untap on their next turn. That says like, okay, all the stuff you've done, all the rocks you played, you don't get to use them, and right now I get to use mine.
Yeah.
So it gives you sort of like a pause in the action to be able to accommodate that.
Yeah,
but that's also extremely powerful in player one.
It's borderline more powerful for player one than it is for everybody else, because they're the first one that's going to get to do it to you.
Sure. Yeah. It affects the player going last hugely. Yeah. I mean, it's a really challenging problem.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting to think about mulligans and things of that nature as like a rule change possibility rather than necessarily cards that can be designed. So like, people have said like sort of incrementally increasing scry.
Yeah, rolling scry.
So like, turn one, everybody still draws normal, but like player 2 scry 1's at the start of the game, player 3 scry 2, and player 3 scry 3, something like that. You could change that to surveil maybe.
Yeah.
You could do
Surveil seems too powerful.
Yeah.
I've also heard just the 4th player scries.
Yeah, you could have just the 4th player, but scry 1 is very little advantage. But yeah, you could do something like that where just the 4th player draws an extra card. You could get crazy and say like 4th player gets an extra land drop or something. Like you can make whatever rule you want to try and balance this out. I think there's some interesting discussions to be had about that being the fix, because I do think that it's really hard to design cards that are going to fix this. This is not a card design problem.
Yeah, it's only for one. It's a game.
It's not being created by a card.
Right,
it's being
it's
created by the
multiplayer
game. So that I think a game rule is probably more likely to solve it.
I like that quite a bit, because if you allow player 4 to scry 1 or scry 2 at the beginning of their first turn, it allows them to play riskier, like what we were talking about, where like, okay, maybe I can keep a hand that has like faster ramp even though there's not a lot of threats, because I know I'm going to find one.
You're going to see an additional card.
Yeah, that could be something.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I mean, I think it's definitely been a conversation that's happening a lot in the moment. And let us know in the comments what you think, how Wizards can solve this problem, either by rule change or maybe card design. Let us know. And thanks for watching this one. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a ton of fun to think about. Before we go, we have to say thank you to our amazing team here at the Command Zone that makes this episode and all episodes possible. Thank you to Karina Cruz, Josh Diaz, John Schneider, Gaurav Gulati, Jamie Block, Jordan Pridgeon, Jake Boss, Becky Bell, Eric Lem, Manson Lung, Josh Murphy, Evan Limburger, Sam Waldo, and of course, Jimmy Wong. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, food eating's philosophy is interesting. There's definitely certain, like, people have saved the best things for the end of the meal. Some people start with the best things and work their way back. Some people eat around and just, exactly. I'm going to eat one of each thing. So I do know what the best thing is. I just don't, I'm going to sprinkle it throughout.
We should do a podcast about this.
I'm a real sprinkler.
Strategy to everything.
A friend I learned recently, he eats hot dogs from the top.
What?
Excuse me?
The toppings more than the dog.
That's psychopathic.
I don't think it's friendly.
Don't put the dog on it then. Put the toppings in.
But this is the eat the dessert first. It's eat the good thing first.
Yeah,
right?
but what a mess.
I mean, it is. I'm not saying it's not a little weird, but it's just a cousin to that same philosophy.
No, then the last bites are trash.
I put.
But that's the crust.
That's devil's advocate for this guy. He's a freak.
That's crazy.
There's the people that just don't eat that much, so they have room for dessert. Like, don't finish what's in front of me, so I'm not full.
Yeah.
I put the condiments on the bun. I don't know if that's weird.
And then you do bun.
And then I do the hot dog.
It's like mustard in, then dog in.
It's probably less messy.
Scary, really.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm like losing my mind. Whenever you eat a hot dog with all the toppings on top, they always fall off.
Yeah.
So I started putting them on the bun and then the hot dog on top, so that when you eat it, they won't like fly all over the place. There won't be.
Problem is,
it's just cleaner.
At the ballpark, do you take it out and then hold it and then fill it and then put the dog back in?
I've never had
much work. Too much work.
I've never had a ballpark hot dog.
You've never what?
I've never had a hot dog at like a baseball game or anything like that. No.
You never had a Dodger dog?
Nope.
I mean, he just got here.
We got to change that. This is all bonus content. After the credits roll. After the credits roll, we're talking about food strategy.